Motorsport. Motorsports, and we have got cars on the track. It is FP2 officially underway at the Hungaroring over in Budapest, and hopefully we're going to see a really good session from some of the sort of chasing teams. Ferrari taking a step forward in that first session earlier today. McLaren obviously still very much setting the pace at the moment, but hopefully we are going to see a few people sort of try and close the gap a little bit, and I'll be really excited to see what this sort of all looks like. The Racing Bulls are very quick in FP1. Isaac Hadjar doing a nice job over there, and lots of people talking about the fact that maybe the Racing Bulls might even be faster to a certain degree than the Red Bull at the moment, which didn't really feature in FP1. Mercedes also struggling to really sort of get the pace going and get into sort of the situation and kind of the pace they want to see in the sort of the rankings really at the moment, because they're just so far off where they were about a year ago. And I think very frustrating is the fact that I just don't even think they really understand why. And George Russell was speaking in before about the fact that, you know, they've gone backwards and then they're really just trying to sort of sort things out and kind of work out what's going wrong and why things are going wrong. But he didn't really have an answer, which is worrying times if you're a Mercedes fan with regards to those steps backwards. And I mean, you've got Kimi Antonelli, who has struggled in the last few races, and in a debut season, a youngster like him, you've got to try and make sure that you're on the ball and you're giving him the best possible car to sort of try and compete with, because he's going to struggle anyway given the inexperience, and they haven't quite done that so far this season. So an interesting session coming up for Mercedes, an interesting weekend I think coming up for Mercedes, and we've got a couple of other cars on the track. We'll start getting some times coming in very, very shortly. I want to know, people, who you are supporting. What is your team? Let me know down in the comments below. Let me know what you thought about of the first session, and maybe some early predictions on, are we going to see any surprises in 25 hours time when we have qualifying tomorrow? Could we see Lewis Hamilton, who's dominated this track in the past? Is he going to potentially be able to try and get that Ferrari operating and into a potential podium for this weekend. You know, let's just call a spade. Very unlikely for him to win, and struggling at the moment to even get to the podiums at the moment, but it is a track that he's had so much success in that if there was ever a time really for him to sort of pitch up and get a good result, this would very much be it. And let's hope that he can try and do something like that over the weekend. But I didn't really see much of him in the first practice. Charles Leclerc, though, wasn't bad at all. So as I said, there were promising signs coming from Ferrari. Reason to be a little bit optimistic, I think, but cautiously optimistic. I say that as a Ferrari fan because, yeah, you know, we've been optimistic before. It hasn't always paid out. So we have to just sort of be very careful sometimes. We're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, but hopefully we can really start to put a bit of pressure on the McLarens this weekend and maybe fight for a podium and the likes of that. I've got a poll running in the comments, by the way, asking you, who do you think will be the quickest in the session? 83% at the moment saying McLaren, 81% now, 17% Ferrari. Nobody's saying Mercedes is going to be one of the faster teams, 2% saying other. If you are one of those 2% people, what do you think is going to be the which one are you backing? Who are you backing with regards to that call? You know, are we talking about a Red Bull? Are we talking about Racing Bulls, who were very quick in the first session? Maybe an outside shot. Maybe the likes of you know, Alonso back into the session. Didn't miss the first session, so we didn't have a particularly good session. Did Aston Martin? But maybe they might be able to just better things up a little bit. And in the session as well. I'm just on my time board a little bit. I can see that there's a couple of issues there as it all starts to load. So we're just sort of settling in there really. And the two Aston Martins are off to a pretty solid start so far, topping the leaderboard. So as mentioned, give me a shout out. Who are your team? You know, who are you guys supporting? What is the general feel? As you can know, it goes fastest in the session so far. Nice for him to get a good start off in this session. We need to start seeing more from Yuki Tsunoda, don't we? You know, we really need to start seeing him start to get a lot out of that Red Bull car, which is incredibly difficult to drive. That part we know. And you know, but I'm sitting at a 117.645 at the moment. After that, you've got Alex Albon and Carlos Sainz, but Isaac Hydra goes slightly quicker there as well. So starting to see some better times coming in from the different teams, but not much happening from Ferrari, McLaren. They're actually not out there. Neither is Max Verstappen at the moment. So a slow start to the session from that perspective. I'm now having to watch a split screen of Martin Brundle sitting in his helicopter, which must be quite a cool view actually, in fairness. So you can see over there, so far, most of the drivers apart from Hulkenberg have done just the 2 laps over there. Ocon doing 3 and Hulkenberg doing 3 there as well. But hopefully we'll see a bit more as Antonelli comes onto the track. And need to see something from Antonelli this weekend. He's struggled so far in the last few weeks. Need to try and step up the game. I do think Mercedes in general have regressed, as mentioned earlier, so not entirely down to him. But he needs to start showing that at least he knows to start trying to keep up with George Russell, which is difficult to do as a young driver in a team that is just not quite where they once were. Speaking of not quite where they once were, you know, Hamilton gave a very interesting pre-session interview where he spoke about the fact that you know, he's just really struggling within that Ferrari, and he needs to try and find something to start getting going really. And said it's been a very challenging season. He said it's definitely been the most intense season that he's had in his career, which is a very long career, which has had very intense seasons. So it was quite a big call coming from Hamilton himself. But I can understand sort of the thinking. You know, he's had such a good car for so many years. Now doesn't quite have that. Brand new to a team which is getting there. We're seeing one of the Saubers going quite wide into the dirt trap there. That'll put a lot of gravel onto the road, which won't be ideal. But it's going to take, you always thought it was going to take time I think we were hoping that it was going to be better. I think we were hoping that Ferrari in general were going to be more competitive. Yes, they are, currently second on the in the constructors, but they're not anywhere near the McLarens. There's like 20, 30 seconds on almost every single race between them. So there's a lot to work on from that point of view. But at the moment, we've got George Russell with the fastest lap, by the way. Currently the 117.4. Lewis Hamilton, however, has done a purple first sector. And really, really cool to see the two Ferraris up at the top of that leaderboard at the end of the session. Charles Leclerc's done a green first sector and a purple second sector, so let's see what he's going to come around in the next few seconds. Lewis Hamilton looking pretty good as well. And Charles Leclerc is going to come through at a 117. Will go fast, 170.181. Doesn't quite break the 117 barrier, but does go fast in the session. Look at some of the radios over here, and Kimi Antonelli being told there's no pressure behind, so it's he can get himself onto a decent lap. And Hamilton there with his lap, putting in a 117. I think it's 0.3 from the looks of it. So not quite as fast as his teammate, which has kind of been the story of the season so far. Yeah, so you can see there's a 117.5. 5.8 coming from Hamilton over there. Now, Oscar Piastri gets on the action. He goes fifth fastest. Was the fastest in the first session. Second fastest in the first session, just behind Norris. But you could actually very much see where they could make up the time. So it's quite obvious in terms of some of the mistakes that Piastri had made. So, I think Piastri's going to take the championship, and I'd really like him to do it as well. Very good driver. I like his attitude. I think he's a bit of a breath of fresh air, to be honest, and it'd be nice to see a new champion this year. I think Norris has just made too many mistakes too consistently to really challenge for the title in a way that he would have liked to have done. He had it. It was his title, really. I think. He had the early run in it, but just didn't really manage to make it count. And as a result, I think is going to unfortunately miss out on that. But so Piastri at the moment leading the championship. Look, to be fair, it's a long way still to go. It's a very long season and plenty of racing still to come. I do think Piastri at the moment just seems to not be making mistakes at crucial times, which is what we've seen Lando Norris being guilty of. He's made far too many mistakes at crucial times throughout the season, and I think that's going to come back to haunt him at the end. But he is currently the fastest on the track, and he's the first one to go under that 117 margin, as we're seeing a couple of the new grandstands, a new 10,000-seater grandstand at the Hungaroring, also a new sort of pit wall. So lots of upgrades coming to the very famous track. Lots of the drivers really enjoy this track, likened to kind of a bit of a Monaco without the narrowness to the walls, but not necessarily the fastest track with regards to sort of the top speeds and the type of speeds they get to, but lots of downforce for the cars over the weekend. And it's a proper racing track. We can see overtaking. Hopefully we will see a pretty good race. Watching on board now with George Russell. Lots of traffic trying to get through, and that's going to be a very average lap as a result. But we do have everybody on the track at one stage. I think everybody's at the moment. I don't think anyone's in the pit. I think Gasly's actually in the pit at the moment. So everybody is 19 out of the 20 on track, but everybody has got a lap in at the moment. Gasly the first with a 118.7. Max Verstappen sitting with a 117.9. He'll definitely want to try and bring that down quite a bit. But mostly, as you can see, medium tires being used. Ocon has used a set of hards, as well as Behrman and Bortoletto. Looking at George Russell there, and well over a second slower than his previous lap. So, I think the traffic there was the issue. One of the Ferraris not coming out of the pit. Looks like it could be Lewis Hamilton coming back out. And Hülkenberg now goes into the top 10 with a decent lap coming from him. And it was so cool if we could see him on the podium. That was probably definitely the moment of the season so far when he was on his first podium after all those years, that was 200-odd races, and you finally get a podium. And I think that for me, what was so cool was just the way everybody reacted, and everybody was almost more excited about the fact that he was on the podium than Lando winning. So a very cool moment over there. Going back to some of the team radios at the moment, over saying that, let's go see, what do we got to say here? The team radios are interesting. Yeah, nothing too much coming from the radio transcriptions at the moment. And Hamilton looking to go on a fast lap, saying they're ready to start the lap. Wants to pick up the pace in the last 3 corners to the front. So let's see what Hamilton's going to have now going into about to start a fast lap, and hopefully we'll see a pretty decent one. Now, Liam Lawson's out there on a hot lap at the moment. That Racing Bull was quick in the first practice. He hasn't quite had the season he wanted. Liam Lawson starting at Red Bull was replaced and hasn't quite managed to go. Well, jeepers, looks a little bit out of control there, does Liam Lawson. Meanwhile, Charles Leclerc's gone a fastest first sector, and he's on a hot lap here. Bit of traffic for Lawson to try and get around. Doesn't look like he's got quite control of that car at the moment. Struggling a little bit as Liam Lawson. Hadjar currently sitting in 5th place. So as we can see, that Racing Bull's car does have pace this weekend. Leclerc now with a yellow second sector, so don't think we're going to necessarily see a fastest lap from him. Hamilton down in 6th place, by the way. Antonelli up to 2nd with a 117.147. And Charles Leclerc doesn't quite manage to, a little bit faster for Charles Leclerc, goes ahead of Antonelli, but doesn't quite manage to get up to where Norris is and below that 117 threshold. So we've got a poll running and saying who will be the quickest this session. McLaren 78% at the moment. You are correct right now. Lando Norris with the fastest lap of the session. After that, we've got Ferrari, the Mercedes. And then we go, Oscar Piastri now takes almost half a second off of his previous time, and he goes 0.3 of a second faster than Lando Norris. So that is a proper lap coming from Oscar Piastri. Pierre Gasly is still in the pits, been there for a while. Didn't have a great weekend last weekend, and you just think. I mean, Pierre Gasly for me should be at a better team. I think he's in the top 10 best drivers on the grid, to be honest, and I think that he's just not quite managing to look. I mean, to be fair, I mean, I said last week. I mean, I said yeah, tough weekend, finishing 10th, got points, but that Alpine is just a bit inconsistent, to be honest. I mean, last week I think the talk was all about Alex Albon and that 6th place for him in the Williams. And I'm very excited to see what the Williams does next season. We also had a Sauber getting more points last week. Actually, very interesting interview with Jonathan Wheatley earlier after the first practice, talking about the fact that it's a very young team, and he says not so much just within the team itself, the engineers, the team principal, even the drivers, for example, Bortoletto, very inexperienced, and he said it's going to take time. So they're very happy with the growth that they've seen so far, Jonathan Wheatley and the Sauber team, but saying that it's going to take time, and they're hoping to see improvement, but just it's not going to be an overnight success. I do think we've seen immediate improvement in Sauber in the last few months. I mean, and Hülkenberg getting onto the podium is testament to that. So very interesting to see how that team, when they transition to Audi, what that looks like next year, and just how much performance can they add. But I'll tell you what, speaking of performance, Isaac Hadjar is holding his own at the moment once again in that Racing Bull, which looks like it's got plenty of pace. At the moment, the two McLarens very much setting the trends at the moment. Lewis Hamilton will come through, and it doesn't look like he will improve his lap, unfortunately. Big news obviously coming from the Ferrari desk that Fred Vasseur has been added a extension to his contract. They're expecting, we hear it's about another 3 years, taking him through to probably at least 2027, 2028 type of vibes, which was quite important because there's a lot of pressure growing on him, given the fact that Ferrari have been a bit disappointing this season. I don't think that they were ever going to be on McLaren's tail, but I think people just expected them to be a bit closer. I think people have been very disappointed with how uncompetitive Lewis Hamilton has been so far. That's probably where the pressure's sort of coming towards Fred. So, yeah, I think it's a difficult one. I do think that he's done a good job, to be fair. I think that he, as Charles Leclerc was talking about in the interview, just brings a lot of calm. He's very good at basically shielding, the team. As Lando Norris, by the way, brought a little bit of that time off his lap there. Very good at sort of taking the pressure on himself and kind of creating a barrier between the media and the sort of the external noise and the team himself. And I do think he's got the right personality to try and get Ferrari back on track. But we've got to see them back on podiums. We've got to see them competing and fighting to win races. That is the Ferrari we knew. That's the Ferrari I knew growing up. And that is the Ferrari we all want to see. So I'm going to take a bit of a quick break. We will have alternative comments coming up very quickly. But again, I'm going to try to put another poll in the comments and ask you very early on who you think is going to be on poll. So get your votes in and let me know who you think is going to be on poll. And I'll be back very shortly.
Performance-wise, psychologically, knowing that you've not got the same equipment as your teammate, that can be just as damaging as literally not having the same equipment.
Is Charles Leclerc the threat to McLaren for this weekend? He's currently third fastest. Take us through the rest of the lap.
Well, he's been the biggest threat so far, Crofty, so can he carry this on? And he's going to need to absolutely drive his heart out if he's to be anywhere near the McLarens, but I do see him as the best of the rest, as Jamie put it in FP1. Which goes to show the might of McLaren at the moment. But yeah, as he heads up the hill towards turn 4, pick your line. Only 1 point of apex through that corner. It comes at you so quickly. And then through the longer turn 5 before slowing it down into the chicane. The right, take a bit of curb on the right and then the left as well. And everything you can on the right-hand side before turning into turn 8. That's the one you have to compromise before turn 9. Back on power, use all the curb on the exit and kiss the AstroTurf as well. And then send the car into turn 11, briefly off power, back on again, no brakes required. And then down the hill towards turn 12. This is where we saw Hülkenberg kick up the stones earlier on, and Charles does a very similar thing, but not quite as far. Then you're into the really long turn 13, penultimate corner. Bring the car back over to the left, and the fans have got a great view of that final corner as Leclerc gets back on power to finish the lap here. Very short lap, just 4.3 kilometers, 2.7 miles. And yeah, P3 once again for him right now.
Charles Leclerc third fastest, Oscar Piastri second fastest, and Lando Norris currently quickest. They were the top 3, of course, in Spa, with Oscar Piastri winning and Lando finishing as runner-up. Oscar 8 wins, Lando 8 wins, Charles Leclerc 8 wins. Checker flag waved by Jackie Ickx. 8 wins in his career. The Belgian Grand Prix this year, only the 4th Grand Prix in F1 history in which all the podium finishers had the same number of wins, after USA 1962, Austria 79 and Italy 2008, which was Sebastian Vettel's maiden win in the rain. I love it when you get that, 8 wins apiece. You two prefer speed analysis and throttle tracing and corner analysis, so take us through this one.
That looks like the kind of analogy of, well, I say slow ins, fast out, but Lando just a bit earlier on the brakes, able to carry a bit more minimum speed and not too dissimilar on the exit there. So Lando, by the looks of things in FP1 especially, was carrying a lot of minimum speed in a lot of these kind of medium slow speed corners, and there's a lot of lap time in that because you're in those corners for a long time. So he was able to find a lot of lap times, particularly over the Ferrari, for example, and even his teammate, especially the last corner. So seems to have quite a nice start through here and this track.
Is that the simple trick here, slow in, fast out?
I think
you're looking at me going, oh, don't know, but
not classically, I'd say, on this track. It's more about send it into the apex, and Lewis is very good at that. So I think that's more his natural style as well, just that karter's style, where you try and slow the car down with the front axle, with the front tyres. So you brake and turn at the same time. It's a quick change of steering angle, and you lean heavily on the outside front tyre. And you demand a lot from the front end by doing that. You need, obviously, as Lewis has gone off in the chicane, but I do think in these kind of corners here, Crofty, you need to have a car that's very pointy. When you turn the steering, the car needs to lurch towards the apex. And you've got to be the kind of driver that loves to drive like that by attacking the front end, attacking the apex of the corner, late on the brakes. And therefore, I'd say it's not really the kind of circuit where you focus on the exits too much. I see Piastri as more of the kind of faster flowing. He's got a good flow to his driving. He's very kind on the car on the apexes, and then he does focus more on the exits. He's very good at carrying speed in high-speed corners as well. So therefore, Silverstone's, we take another look at Lewis going wide there in turn 6-7. But Piastri's more, I say, fits his style naturally in these cars at least. He's more of a faster flowing kind of driver. So the Silverstones, the Suzukas, the Spas, that's where he's more in his element. Norris looks forward to these kind of tracks. Singapore as well, street circuits. He won Monaco. So it's more his kind of style to drive it like a go-kart.
Charles Leclerc said he really doesn't like this track, which I found surprising.
I find surprising as well, because it's one of those tracks I feel a lot of the drivers really enjoy, and a lot of the drivers go very well at, especially the kind of drivers that have come through the ranks in F3, F2. They often win here and go on to win championships. So some drivers love it, Lewis, George as examples, but yeah, I was surprised to hear that from Charles. We're seeing Fernando.
This guy, he likes it.
Yeah, of course. He's been here 22 times. I'm sure he can do it in his sleep, to be honest.
That might have been the camera angle a bit there, but did that Aston look like it was really sliding through the penultimate corner?
I mean, they do slide, as we saw when we rode on board with George Russell. Maybe that camera just
want that. That's not going to help your tyre life too much, is it?
It doesn't. But what you tend to see in free practice, at least, is the drivers push harder than they'll do in the race. In the race, you don't want to be doing any of that kind of stuff. You want to minimise the slip of the tyre. But here, you get a bit carried away sometimes and overdrive the tyres.
Lewis Hamilton just a few moments ago on a push lap here at the Hungaroring, and just taking the easy option there when he knew he wasn't going to make that chicane of heading off onto the runoff area so as not to flat spot or overstress those medium tyres. And everyone on the medium tyres, apart from Behrman and Ocon and Bortoletto on the hards, and this man on your screen right now, Carlos Sainz, the first driver to go onto the soft tyres. We're going to get some qualifying simulations here, but I'm going to point out the track temperature at 38 degrees, and we're 25 past 5 in the early evening here in Budapest. Now, that is not qualifying time, and it is not race time either. So how representative these track conditions are going to be when we get to the serious end, I'm not quite sure.
It's always the battle. It's actually a lot cooler than I've ever remembered this place being. I always find Budapest is such a hot race, and that's actually one of the biggest issues. That said, regardless of the track temperature, it still really makes tyres overheat and causes a lot of stress. Carlos Sainz here had a messy FP1, so he's going to want to try and get a few good laps under his belt, get a good feel for the car balance on this soft tyre, because it's a bit of a qualifying track as well. You're going to want to qualify well here, and putting a weekend together for Carlos has been something that's been a challenge, I think, for this season so far, and through things that have been out of his control a lot of the time. It's just having a clean weekend that will make a big difference.
Yeah, which I thought he was going to get in Spa after he had such a good sprint race, but then the Grand Prix itself just didn't work out for him. He goes third fastest, was on the front row here back in 2022. Who else is coming out on the soft tyres? Lance Stroll will be the next one for an Aston Martin team who were the only no-point scorers in Belgium across either the sprint or the Grand Prix. And you don't want to be doing that very often. Just let the car drift out wide, but too wide at the top of the hill for Carlos Sainz.
A lot of steering lock in the car in a lot of these corners. Just looks like he hasn't quite got the front where he needs it. Running wide a little bit.
Right, from track action to the pit lane. Now, John Elkann is here, the chairman of Ferrari, in time to shake hands with Fred Vasseur, who's got a new contract extension to remain as team principal at the Scuderia. Bernie, down to you.
Yes, Crofty, I was just going to bring you a bit of news from Red Bull. We're stood in front of Verstappen's car. We've seen this change they announced earlier this weekend, that they were changing the coolant in that front brake duct. And all weekend, through P1 and P2, there's been various work going on around this front brake ducts. Both cars went out with a degree of Flovis, that we can see the green paint, just some of it lingering there on that front right of Verstappen. So obviously some concerns over the cooling that we've had there, and there's been a setup change also happening on that front suspension of Verstappen's as they come in. So a bit of work or a slight concern with Red Bull at the minute potentially on that front, but still trying to fully investigate the upgrades that they've brought here this weekend.
Thanks, Bernie. Both drivers seemingly unhappy with the way the car's feeling for them so far. On board with Lance Stroll now, who's put in a 27.8, best sector in the first part that we've had, and a 26.9, which is about 10th out in the middle part of the lap. Quite sure what sort of improvements we're looking for, medium to soft. Normally about half a second here, I would imagine. Stroll crosses the line, goes quickest with a 1:16.2, 3/10 up on Lando Norris. Maybe improvements a bit more than half a second on that.
Definitely more than half a second. The rate of improvement on the driver alone would be about 3-4 tenths.
Okay.
And then if you just put a brand new set of tyres on, even if it was medium, you gain so much as a track of soft tyres. And there's a queue coming out the pit lane
as Lando Norris makes his way into turn one. Let's have the view from on high. Martin Brundle is up in the helicopter.
We're on the outside of turn 9 at the moment, sort of prowling really. We're a long way back. We're waiting, so leaving in the back will tell Christian when to pick up a car 3-4 corners early so we can get the nose down. Things that stand out up here. First of all, there's a million yellow cabs approaching this place all parked up. It's absolutely extraordinary. But again, so many slow cars. They don't want to take any life out of their tyres. And we know this is a rear tyre killer, but it's like an overwhelming view, actually, of loads of slow cars and then one rocket ship turning up, and they all scatter and somehow get out of each other's way. So we're nose down again. Who are we chasing this time? And we've been fine-tuning this all the way through so far between Christian the pilot leaving on the camera. And we're picking up a McLaren. He must have gone through 5 cars, kicking up some dust on the outside of 11. He's into 12. We go straight to 14 then, and we pick up altitude. Little bit of lateral yaw going on there as the McLaren then doesn't duck in the pit lane, goes into, carries so much speed into 14. We've now got him bang in the middle of our screen in front of Christian here. Following, we're right above your commentary box right now, and then we peel off as that car slows down and we go and wait for somebody else to watch. So really, they just keep turning up through the corners and relentlessly, and being such a tight, it's all corners, such a tight racetrack. It's actually hard to keep up with them, which is why we jump 2 or 3 corners at a time, and we're on the outside of turn 1 now. I'm kind of almost looking a cameraman on a rig, on a crane in the eye down there. So we're going to go now and reposition on the outside of 1 and wait for another car that we're spotting is on a fast lap, leaving behind me, looking in his screen. It must make you very queasy, but you get used to it very quickly, actually. It's quite nice, twisting and turning, a lot of energy going on, especially in the high hover. And I'm looking straight down the pit straight now, and the beautiful new pit buildings, the cantilever grandstand where you're all standing up in the commentary box as we just settle down into the trees. We're now below the cameraman in the crane, and we're just waiting for somebody else to come along. But it looks magnificent out there, I must say. But yeah, the overwhelming impression to me are a lot of cars trying to stay out of the way of one car like an arrow through the middle of them. Back to you.
Thanks, Martin. Lando Norris pulled out of his first flying lap. Not done him any harm. 1:15.6 for him. He's nearly 3/10 up on Oscar Piastri, his teammate. Last year's pole time here was Lando Norris, and it was a 1:15.2. We are 4 tenths away from that, and we're actually in FP2 at the moment. What was the best time in FP2 last year? 1:17.7 from Lando Norris. We're way ahead of that. Max Verstappen, meanwhile, not finding the pace in the first 2 sectors that the 2 McLarens had on their soft compound tyres. Lance Stroll's time is holding up nicely. which is really shouldn't be a surprise, given that he's had the fastest lap ever here at the Hungaroring for anyone not driving a Mercedes. He had a 1:14.3 for Racing Point back in 2020. So once again, it's not a track he dislikes. 8th fastest for Max Verstappen when he crosses the line. Hamilton's gone 5th fastest. Hadge is right up there, 4th fastest for him at the moment. But there is, for this track, from Norris down to Hadge, top 4, to be separated by 8/10. That's a big gap.
Huge gap. I think there's, I mean, as you say, Lance Stroll's lap is actually pretty competitive when you actually look at the leaderboard, but if you look at the lap time, it's a huge deficit that you've seen from the McLarens out front, and it makes you think if the two McLaren drivers really put it together between the two of them, what their ultimate lap will be. It'll be even more than that, which is slightly concerning.
Russell's gone 4th fastest. We're now on board with the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc making his way towards turn 10 and 11. Top of the hill. Before he can rest briefly, they call this bit a straight. It's barely time to get your foot flat to the floor before you're turning the wheel again. Norris will keep out of the way. Leclerc goes past. Max Verstappen's been noted for a turn 3 incident. Maybe we'll get a replay of that in a few moments as Leclerc continues on his way around the final corner. Patience, patience, patience. Now you're straight. Now the DRS is open and you can get your foot to the floor to go 3rd fastest. Norris, Piastri, Leclerc. Who would bet against those being the top 3 come the checkered flag on Sunday?
It's been consistently that way, hasn't it, from FP1 to where we are now with 26 remaining, and interesting to see the different cars' strengths and weaknesses through the lap, different drivers that are making mistakes here and there. It's pretty normal on this track in the early stages of free practice. It's so important to hook a lap up around here. I'd say driving as close to a perfect lap as possible for this circuit. It's harder than many, and in that regard it is a bit more like a street track. But Stroll really he's hit the ground running here and improved actually on his second time. They're not in the final sector, but he's improved in both the first and second. He's done personal best and pops himself back in front of the Ferrari of Leclerc. So it's another track where, or another driver where by using a lot of front energy of the tyres, he's quite successful here, is Stroll. So a good wet weather driver as well. And I think this kind of track suits a driver that really leans on the front axle a lot. So he's one of those drivers. Norris as well. I was talking about this before. But yeah, you see some drivers, they just really click for this place. And Stroll is one of those. So let's see what Alonso can do against his teammate. Obviously, nursing that back injury, it's not pleasant, it's not going to go away, and that will be on the back of his mind as well throughout this weekend. Had to miss FP1 as a result of that. It doesn't just magically repair itself. So see what he does. He crosses the line, pops it up to P5, a good lap, but still Stroll has the upper hand. For a man who's go back to Silverstone last year for the last time Lance Stroll out-qualified Fernando Alonso for a Grand Prix. Piastri on a second lap, personal best in the first part of the lap, and then the tyres didn't hold up, or he didn't find the right line. Second fastest still, and still that 3/10 between himself and Lando Norris. Quite often the way here where
that's where he lost a bit of time.
Yeah, that's in the heart of the second sector, so that's why that went downhill from there. But it's a circuit where on that first push lap on the brand new tyre, you quite often don't do your best first sector. That will normally come on the second lap because it's all about the tyre prep. You spend so long trying to, this is the moment in turn 3.
With Max Verstappen.
He's had something, a rag in the car. It's been left in the car.
Yeah, that's not a tear-off.
No. And they've got issues with him throwing it onto the circuit, of course.
Well, there's two things there. He's thrown that onto the circuit. The stewards are going to look at that after the session. He's thrown that onto the circuit. It looked like a towel, rag, as you say. He has no idea whether he's throwing that onto the grass, into the trees, or if that's going to go behind and into a car, or onto someone's helmet, or into an engine cooling, or whatever. Secondly, cars shouldn't be being released with towels left in them. So is it unsafe release conditions? And I don't know what throwing a towel. He's not throwing in the towel. He definitely hasn't done that this year.
He's a long way from that, Crofty. But
I don't know what regulation throwing a towel onto the track comes on.
No, I think it's kind of like seen as an unsafe release from the team. Yeah. It's a mistake from the team, so I think it'll be maybe a fine coming their way. Hamilton, meanwhile, speaking of that first sector and how quite often you don't fully put it together, he has on this lap. Let's see if this continues on through the rest of it as he comes out of turn 9, turn 10. There's an important corner here in 11. He had 2 bites at it there, didn't he? Not hit personal best through the second sector, but it wasn't all to do with turn 11. He's already done
stay on board for a bit, didn't you?
He's already done a lap, of course. He's 8.5 tenths away. So so he's improved that first lap. Didn't expect a purple from it, but fastest of all. Let's see what he's done in the final sector. Yeah, it does improve his position and his time, but it's just that middle sector. Something else must have happened. But an improvement. So the track, what that tells me is that the circuit's still improving.
Yeah.
Because you really shouldn't be able to improve your overall lap time on the second lap here on a set of tyres.
It's also how representative that first sector is, because I think you can really push the first sector, use a lot of the tyre in the first sector, and then you get to the middle and the last sector and it's screaming at you a little bit. All day McLaren have been, relatively speaking, much closer to the rest of the pack in the first sector, and then second sector find a bit more, and then the third sector, particularly Lando and FP1, was a big step. Oscar now is a big step as well.
Now, if this is a go-kart track, or like a go-kart track, this man is absolutely one to watch for the weekend, given that in between Silverstone and Spa, he spent a lot of time at a go-kart track trying to break the lap record in Sweden. He did, and then the lap record holder's broken it back again, and they actually had a little chat on Zoom, and they're going to go, I think they're going to try and go in the future together and try and lower the benchmark even more.
Oh, there's another couple of weeks after this weekend, so the summer holidays aren't over yet, Ollie.
That towel is still on the track, by the way, that Max lobbed away. That's a very good first sector. For a man, by the way, Ollie Behrman, who has finished 11th in the last 4 races, which is frustrating because it's one place outside the points. He's not the first driver to do that. Michele Alboreto did it years ago when he finished 7th for 4 races in a row. And points were down the top 6. That was back in 1992. But if Ollie finishes 11th this weekend, he will be the outright record holder for the world's most stupid record, which is the most successive finishes in a single place other than first in Formula 1. 4 is the record. Ollie could make it 5. So that's one crumb of consolation if he does miss out on the points by 1 place this weekend. He crosses the line, goes 11th, fastest, see this on. The record is on for Ollie Behrman. Now we can get excited, Jamie Chapman.
He had a little shake of his head whether he knows that was the record that he's going for.
For heaven's sake, Crofty will be uncontrollable between now and the checkered flag.
Possibly the worst place as well.
Yes.
11th.
You couldn't have written that lap, could you?
But what would you rather take? The record, or a 10th place finish? No one cares about 10th, do they?
Oh, the point would be nice. It's like Nico Hülkenberg. Oh, and he's touched it again. That is a big snap.
Well, this is
Oscar.
Lando. No, it's Lando this time. It was Oscar first time around, wasn't it? So that is what can happen. So both McLaren drivers, say it again, they're pushing each other so hard that...
Oh, Norris.
He's just said what we were thinking as we saw it.
That's going to be a meme, isn't it, now?
Oh, Norris.
Norris.
I was about to say, Oscar earlier, when he touched the grass, he's always been known for pushing the limit with track usage, particularly on entry, but that is so close. And I always think when you look at these F1 cars, they're so wide, it rewards good track usage, and often you're seeing the tyre just go over onto the grass a little bit, and often it goes unnoticed until you see something like that and you realise how punishing it can be.
I was talking to a young lady in Spa, came up for a chat, and she said, I'm going to be in Hungary. I said, what are you watching from? She said, no, I'm going to be a marshal. I said, yes, second time. I was down the main straight before, but I've been moved to the final corner. I said, you're going to see quite a lot there, and potential incidents. We were talking about that Carlos Sainz incident. She's probably down there now saying, ooh, Norris. Because I think everybody was saying that when he touched the dirt. Fernando Alonso is just completing his final push lap in this session. Currently 5th fastest. I'll tell you what, if Aston Martin can be 4th and 5th at the end of this race, that will be huge for that team, who need a morale-boosting weekend, I think. He stays 5th fastest, does Fernando Alonso, with his teammate Lance Stroll ahead of him, and a top 3 of Norris, Piastri and Leclerc separated by 0.4 of a second. So this is really interesting. Max Verstappen, second in the high-speed corners. Car working well in the high-speed, of which there's not much here, but the medium speed and low speed, of which there's a lot of medium speed, struggling to stay in the top 10.
And even worse, the straights by the looks of things. So there might be a bit of engine mode in play with that. They'll be hoping that's a factor. But then if you look at the medium and low speed, the amount of time spent in those corners, it's just critical for lap time and super punishing for them. I'm surprised by how far off they are, to be honest. And actually, Yuki, at the moment, has got the run on Max in this session.
He has.
What we sometimes see from Max particularly is when he goes out like he is now on a medium tyre, and you think that they're not going to be focusing on a fast lap, he'll pop in a much faster time than what he's done on the soft tyres, just to confuse everybody. But I was just scanning it, looking, where is Verstappen? Oh, down there in 14th place. Do we really believe that? Absolutely not. When it comes to Q3, he'll be right there. Not maybe mixing it in between the two McLarens, but definitely fighting the Ferraris.
Absolutely. I think that's always the way with Red Bull in many ways, but at the same time, I think it does look like they have got some balance concerns, and this track is just the worst, I think. If you're suffering in one type of corner, it'll punish you multiple times, and for Max, I think he looks like he's on a race run at the moment to probably see out this session.
On board now with Carlos Sainz. So he finished. He was the first out there on the soft tyres and finished 1.2 seconds off the pace of Lando Norris. Williams, I don't think, expects to be right up there, necessarily top 6, top 7 this weekend.
And just look how different the driving is when you're on a race run. Look at how gentle he's going to be on all the controls here. It's a shame we've gone away from it, because turn 1 was a great showcase, how gently he was braking, how gently on the controls he is as he turns into the corner. There's minimal slip going on through all 4 tyres, and that's exactly how you have to drive this racetrack. So different styles required from the qualifying runs that we saw on the softer tyres to where we are now, as they do there, studying the data, gathering the data for what's to come on Sunday.
Track dominance, Norris against Piastri, and forget the track dominance, it's the stopwatch that's telling a tale there, currently with about 0.3 of a second. Lando Norris making his way back out onto the track again. I would imagine medium tyres, because are the soft tyres going to necessarily be run? Certainly not until the closing stages if there's a late safety car, I'd have thought.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's going to be all about the mediums and hards, I should imagine, for this track. Not that it's really a hard tyre, because they're all pushed towards the softer end for this tight track. We're just doing a start at the end of the pit lane, and off he goes.
And box. We have lost telemetry. Box.
Welcome
Guys,
back to the
unsafe.
Hungaroring. Carlos Sainz is just being told over his team radio, having just come out to start his race runs, box, we have lost telemetry. And if they've lost telemetry, I wonder if they can actually make contact with Carlos Sainz on the radio. Look, here we are on board with him now, and what they want is for him to come in before he goes down the straight again, where they can get the pit board out to actually communicate that way. But if they've lost all the telemetry, whether the radio's working or not, I don't know.
I don't know. It could be a different system, but the worst thing that happens when you lose telemetry is that the car can often forget where it is on track. And if that happens,
means the engine doesn't deploy all the battery.
Exactly. Everything can shift around. Even your DRS zones can change as well if he were to be using that. So yeah, it's a serious thing if they've lost telemetry on the car.
His DRS isn't open, I know he's on a race run currently, so whether he was planning to use DRS or not, I don't know. But that kind of suggests to me, Jamie, that Carlos Sainz can't hear what they're saying to him on the radio.
Exactly. Even if the way is sort of in the way of the race symbols there, it's as if he hasn't got communication coming to him. Either that or it's miraculously come back and he can continue, and we've just not heard that message. But I don't see any pit boards being thrown out along the start-finish straight, which is the sort of old-school method of communicating with a driver before radios came about.
Can't shout at him. Even with these V6s, you still can't hear from the pit wall. You can hear, though, if you've got headphones on and a microphone, and if you're standing next to Bernie Collins. And that's what the lucky position that Felipe Drugovich finds himself in at the moment. Bernie, down to you.
I don't think Felipe's in the lucky position. I think I'm in the lucky position to get to speak to Felipe. Lovely to speak to you. Looking at the board across from us, the Aston Martins in P4 and P5.
I cannot
Is
hear
that
you.
your
Can you
in
hear me?
FP1?
Box,
Or how did that come about?
We've lost telemetry and all comms.
Was,
Stay out, stay out, stay out. We got telemetry back. Stay out,
I think
please.
the car was working well since FP1, and that was a positive that we could see. I think the car was actually quite nice to drive compared to the other times I drove, and yeah, we saw there was more performance to gain from it. Obviously, it's still FP2, so we don't know what the others are doing, but hopefully we can carry on this performance to tomorrow.
And obviously a bit of a late call-up for you to P1. We weren't expecting it. Maybe you had some more warning, but just talk us through, as a reserve driver, how ready you are for that P1 seat and how much work there was this morning to get into it.
Yeah, I mean, it was, I would say, a big lack of preparation because, I mean, I got only the confirmation this morning, so, you know, it was quite in a rush, I would say. You know, everything was just, I woke up early, just came here quite early, got a few stuff through with the engineers, just had a few meetings, and yeah, off we went, and yeah, I just looked at some videos from before. I had a few laps in the simulator before Spa for Budapest. I wasn't in simulator this week, so, you know, it was a bit last minute, but I actually really enjoyed the session. Car was nice to drive, and we got the work done, so it was pretty cool.
And final question, obviously during this session now, you're on the pit wall, looking through the data, listening to the driver feedback. Do you enjoy being on the pit wall, or much happier in the seat in P1?
Well, I mean, the seat in P1 was so much better. I don't like this. I mean, there was, I mean, for sure there's many people that wish to be here, but at the same time, I just wish I could be at the main seat all the time. So I'm just working really hard for that, but at the same time, I think it's good opportunity, you know, just to be with engineers and trying to learn as much as I can. Obviously, all these years that I stayed in this position were not the coolest for me, but I think it shows on track. Every time I jump in the car, I'm quite ready, and I feel comfortable. Obviously, you know, if I keep doing this week after week, for sure I have a lot more performance to gain, but yeah, it is what it is, and I'm happy with the session today, and yeah, we'll see for the future.
Thank you very much, Felipe. I'll let you get back to your seat and watch on.
Thanks ever so much, Bernie, and to Felipe Drugovich as well. Pierre Gasly about to start another lap. While he does that, while we were talking to Felipe, we heard the team radio message that might be good news, and I think is good news for all Williams fans and Carlos Sainz fans out there. Let's have a listen.
I cannot hear you.
Can you hear me? Box. We've lost telemetry and all comms. Stay out, stay out, stay out. We got telemetry back. Stay out, please.
It's always the way, isn't it? Box. Oh, no, it's fine. No, someone's found a hammer and we've hit the box at the back of the garage with it, and everything's working.
I love that in modern day Formula One, they still have tech issues like that. It seems rare as we see Charles Leclerc, go through that strip of gravel that quite a few people have found over this weekend.
Love that strip of gravel.
Oh my God, man, look at this. He lost radio and telemetry.
Which explains it.
And that's how much drivers rely on their engineers, and how much the engineers rely on knowing where the car is, and the GPS and data that gets poured from the car back to where they're sitting.
Because no one's telling Carlos, by the way, Liam's right behind you, mate, get out of the way. And he's probably looking in his mirrors and not really seeing that Liam's on a push lap.
And to come back to that engineer-driver relationship, you're so reliant on them in some regards. They're sort of your right arm in many respects. It's funny, the old sort of school pit boards, looking in your mirrors is less of a thing for the drivers now. They've got so much to concentrate on, but yeah, for Carlos, it looked body language-wise like he had no idea that Liam was there behind him.
Alex Albon will know that right behind him is Lando Norris in the McLaren. Now, he doesn't have to move out the way. He's on a push lap, and Lando Norris is on a push lap, but I would imagine Lando Norris would quite like Alex Albon to get out of the way. And here we're going to see for a little while how difficult it is to overtake at the Hungaroring. It is not an easy track. DRS has helped this place a lot in the last few years, but it still remains, Anthony, a really tricky place to try and get past, even if you're in a McLaren.
Yeah, I mean, both drivers, like you say, are pushing relatively, because look at this, Albon using the DRS, and we often see that when they don't want to be overtaken.
I don't know what's going on. It's just standard low. I can't get it in balance.
Yeah, they've got a tough day in the simulator, a tough session coming up in the simulator after this session and overnight, but we shouldn't panic. All the Red Bull fans out there watching on, don't panic. We've seen it so many times before. One team can turn it around so quickly. It's Red Bull. What are you waving your hand in the air for?
I was doing an impression of a helicopter. Guess what?
Martin in the helicopter?
Well said, Martin.
When they zoom in, I mean, I can see the final corner like it's just underneath me. We followed Max all the way to turn 5, but then the banking on the helicopter, you have to abandon that. And I must say we breached track limits badly on turn 2 to be able to follow the F1 car like that. And all the liveries of the cars I'm finding really interesting. The McLaren jumps out of the racetrack. The yellow nose on the Red Bull and the engine cover. The Racing Bulls in white. Everything else just blends into the tarmac from this height. And it reminds you that so often I think colour schemes are all done graphically and they probably look very good on a computer screen. But on the racetrack, they can look very dull, even on quite a bright day like this, because as you're homing in, it's like, is it green? Is it blue? Is it actually red? And then when you get a little bit closer, but yeah, so liveries are jumping out to me. Every so often we do the big launch down, we're following a car, then he runs wide in turn 6 or something, and we have to abandon it. It's extra frustrating for us, but I imagine it is for the driver too, where you're all set up, you're flowing, the car's in the middle of the screen, and we're dodging across, we're going the other side of the big wheel, sometimes between that and the cables, and it's all really exciting, and then the driver bails on that lap, but it's really interesting to see them, and again, oh, here we go, we're going to stick the nose down, we're going to pick somebody up, somebody coming down the pit straight. Now it is a Ferrari that we're picking up as he goes, no it's not, it's an Alpine now it's got here, that we're picking up as we're going to bank into turn 2, go straight to turn 4, and watch them go up the hill. What's in the screen? Yeah, we've still got the Alpine in the middle of the screen. Now we're coming down to the outside of turn 5. We're going to give it a big bank right. Love it. You can see an Aston now in the that we've got in the middle of the screen here as it goes through that little chicane of 6 and 7. And the corners don't look as tight up here as they do from down there. And then it'll flick, just accelerate all the way through. I can see it's Fernando Alonso now.
Amazing.
He had to hesitate. You can tell it's on full tanks. That's the other thing that's really interesting from up here, is they've had to adjust the launch speed and the following speed to allow for the full tanks on the cars, can you believe? Because they definitely go quite a bit slower. And Lieben and Christian there have had to sort of adjust their nose down time. And I said to them, they're on full tanks, and it has made a remarkable difference as we've got a bit of side slips going on here as to what we do to follow them. And then, of course, we've got to stay high enough to be out of the main shots from the trackside cameras, because you don't want the helicopter flying through your shots. So that's why in turn 2 we have to lift it up and get out of there. So lots of challenges. It's absolutely fascinating. I've learned so much up here. Back to you, Crofty.
Absolutely brilliant. What we could see from our commentary box window was the helicopter banking quite severely. As Martin was talking, he didn't skip a beat. There wasn't a stumble, there wasn't an or an he gently grasped the handle on the side of the door and carried on as if it was nothing. And I'm thinking, yeah, rather you than me, mate.
Is this guy doing this on purpose or what? Like, what's wrong with him?
Copy, that's head done.
Isaac Hadja not happy because he's out on the track doing race simulations and he is behind the Mercedes of George Russell, and it's interfering with what he wants to do, and the fact that his tyres are getting a bit overheated, his brakes are getting a bit overheated, and he's in that turbulent wake of the Mercedes. And it does seem, man, he's been put out about 2 or 3 seconds too close to George Russell. But what are you going to do around this track? You can't all have the space you want.
Yeah, you just cast your eye over the circuit map. If you've got that available wherever you're watching, we have it in the commentary box. I mean, the circuit's just full of cars out there. It's rare to find any kind of track position. Kimi Antonelli is one of the lucky few in that regard, and he tackles turn 2, but somewhere in front of him through turn 4 and 5, just up the hill, is that little moment between Russell and Hadjar developing. And I don't really know what Hadjar expects Russell to do when he says, is he doing this on purpose? I can't believe that Russell would purposely drive slower just to have fun and hold up Isaac Hadjar. He's a bit more methodical in his approach to a weekend than that, in trying to help the team and himself gather the information they need. I don't know whether Russell's using the DRS to maintain track positions, and rightly so, selfishly, you can get on with your own program by not being overtaken, because you don't want that turbulence. So that's Hadjar complaining, saying, well, this is ruining our program. And then his engineer, Pierre Hamlin, saying, look, the race is going to be like this. Yeah. Get used to it. This is all good homework for us as well. So we'll have to balance our car for the inevitable midfield fight, which you might be fighting this very driver.
Guess what Isaac Hadjar's just done? He's pitted. So he's now not behind George Russell. So I assume they're going to switch him on to a different set of tyres. What tyres was he on? He was on the mediums, and he'll probably come out on the softs for a couple of laps and for a practice start as well. But he is back into the garage for a while. Think about George Russell couldn't increase his pace if he had the opportunity, because he'd be right then up the tail of Yuki Tsunoda, who was the next car up the road. And by the way, Martin was talking about the different speeds. There's the towel. It's been there ever since Max Verstappen threw it out of his cockpit. I'm surprised. I suppose the thing is, we've had a lot of cars going around the track pretty much all the time, and I wouldn't fancy being the marshal coming out to get that. This is where Max was when he threw the towel. I think he was trying to get rid of it as best he could, but
yeah, he did drive pretty much right up to the edge of the track, and I'm pretty sure he won't get in trouble for it.
No, but
the team will get in trouble for it, sending the car out there in an unsafe way.
They'll say, why didn't you come in, drop the towel off and go back out again? And the answer to that is, well, because I was on the soft tyres and I didn't want to take any life out of them. And they'll go, yeah, but that's not the point. And then I'm sure there'll be a fine, something like that, if the stewards decide the offence is worthy of it. 15 seconds to go. Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri, as expected, out in front. And it's Lando Norris who, certainly round a 2.7 mile track, has a big time pace advantage over his teammate. But it is only Friday.
A big slide for Verstappen through turn 8 as well. Complained on the radio, as many have done, with the balance or ill-handling car that he's got under him, and he's not happy in there. But we've seen this so many times from Max, particularly Red Bull. They sometimes struggle on a Friday, and then they work extremely hard overnight. I think they must have some good correlation tools back at base after running the car on track. And don't forget, the cars often run a lot more sensors on them. Kilos worth of sensors on them compared to
another 100 today compared to tomorrow and Sunday. Anything up to about 300 sensors on the car.
What are we looking at here? This is another slide all over the curbs as well, and that's just the lap he's done. And then he got into turn 8 and had that moment. So yeah,
that could have been a lot worse there. Lando having to lock up.
Save it till Sunday, boys.
Sweat round the outside. Well,
what was that all about?
That will be terrific if that is a battle for the lead on Sunday. But Andrea Stella's probably looking at that, the pit will go, no, it's only Friday, guys. Come on, calm down, calm down.
Maybe it's Norris, and this is what you look like in my mirror in Austria, turn 4 earlier in the year. That's okay. Wow, what was going on there?
Well, Lando came out of the pits, and Oscar was on a lap and didn't want to be behind his teammate. And Lando was like, I don't really want to be behind my teammate either. It's great practice for Sunday.
Maybe Lando was just practicing the outlap, which you often do, but I don't know why. I don't know why you would take that kind of risk when you know your teammates there, or anyone for that matter.
A, he might not, because he might not have been told. And I'm not assuming. And B, are you telling me you wouldn't have wanted to get to turn 1 first if you were? And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the final practice session here at the Hungaroring for what is round 14 of this Formula One World Championship in 2025, the 40th World Championship Hungarian Grand Prix. A track where it's very difficult to overtake. Only 4 Hungarian Grand Prix have been won from outside the top 4 on the grid. But it's a race where none of the last 4 Grand Prix here have been won from pole position. So qualifying is important, but not the be-all and end-all. And we go into qualifying later. 202 miles an hour top speed, 14 corners, and 70 laps to come in Sunday's race. Here's the tyres: soft, medium, hard on the C5, the C4, and the C3. And they're going to have to cope with track conditions that are an awful lot warmer than we saw in FP2 late yesterday afternoon. The sun is out, a few wispy white clouds in the sky, 47 degrees the track temperature. So those that were struggling yesterday might be doing a little bit better in the hotter conditions, and those that were doing really well might be struggling because the track's 10 degrees warmer. We're going to find out in the next 60 minutes.
It's the same old thing, isn't it, Crofty? You're constantly chasing the circuit, and they would have been in the simulators late into the early hours last night. All the sim drivers doing their work back at base to try and turn around some cars like the Red Bull, the Mercedes, cars that weren't quite doing what they wanted, and trying to turn that around for today. But the problem is, track conditions completely different.
Yeah.
So you've made a drastic setup change, and you come here with a 10-degree hotter surface. It might feel different anyway, so you end up chasing your tail quite often with that.
We had a first yesterday in 2025. You mentioned the Red Bull not having the best day. First time this year, Max Verstappen has been the slowest Red Bull driver in Friday practice.
He really had a tough time.
Yeah.
I think they were trying a new front wing on the car as well, more going on in that regard to maybe what meets the eye. And also, don't forget that teams are starting now to put things on the car that, in a way, learning for next year.
Yeah.
So all the teams are starting gradually to shift their focus to 2026, this massive rule change that we've got coming our way, and genuine upgrades on these cars will start to sort of dwindle a little bit.
Are you suggesting then that the Constructors' Championship is all over by the shout?
Well, that graph would pretty much suggest that McLaren have got this one pretty well covered.
516 points for McLaren, 248 for Ferrari. Even at this stage of the season, there is a massive margin between kind of first and second, which is why at Ferrari they're saying, oh yeah, okay, we're sort of second to McLaren, but it's still not been a very good season.
I think I heard a question posed to Fred Vasseur yesterday. So you know, do you think it's a case that you've gone from hero to zero? It's a pretty hard question. Yeah. And he said, well, we're hardly zero. We're second in the Constructors' Championship. However, we might not have the car that McLaren have got, but they're best of the rest. Yeah. And the rest is from P2 down.
I've just actually used a calculator to work it out. 268-point difference. Such was the margin. The exciting bit, as Lance Stroll, in an eerie moment of calm, with everything going on around him, just sits waiting to go out.
Well, he had a great day yesterday, didn't he, Lance Stroll?
Aston Martin as a whole had a really good day.
So can they keep that momentum as well? They'll be one of those teams who are going through the sim work, maybe just saying, polish the car and send it tomorrow, because it looked like it was in a pretty happy place.
Meanwhile, Vincent van Gogh, Paul Monahan has decided to get busy with a Floviz paint. I don't think he's meant to do that, but he's obviously having a wind-up with some of the people in the garage. What is all that for? Has someone upset him? And he's like, right, I'm going to get you back by painting the handles of trolleys.
Yeah, as long as Yuki Tsunoda's seen it and knows not to touch that part of the equipment, then he'll be all right. Lewis Hamilton had I think in the Ferrari was performing quite well yesterday. Charles Leclerc had legs on him, but Lewis wasn't too far away. Still saying that the car was quite tricky to drive, though, in some sessions. Well, some portions of FP2 at least. But there were moments where it looked like it had a bit better balance, particularly on new tyres.
I was going to mention Aston Martin as we looked into the cockpit of Lance Stroll. We'll get on to Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris in a moment. But Aston Martin, 8th in the table, 36 points. Behind them, Haas, 1 point behind them on 35. Ahead of them, RB, 5 points ahead on 41. Then 2 points up to Sauber in 6th on 43. Belgium was a great weekend for everyone in that midfield battle, really, apart from Aston Martin, who didn't score anything. So if they can replicate what they did yesterday, this could be the weekend of all weekends for them.
Yeah, I mean, Aston Martin, they have to have the kind of weekend that Sauber had at Silverstone. I know Sauber didn't finish with one of their cars, so over that podium position. It's just gold dust when you're a team like that in the midfield towards the back end. To pick up that amount of points is something you dream of, and Aston Martin have to have a kind of weekend where at least one of their cars can score a decent amount of points, but the competition obviously is strong. This circuit is a qualifying track. We've had many of those this year already, of course,
even though none of the last 4 Hungarian Grand Prix have been won from pole.
But I mean, in terms of like the general field, it's a qualifying track. You need to be somewhere near the front if you're to score big points. So yeah, whether you're first or second, I didn't really talk about that. It was more about if you're an Aston Martin, you need to have a decent qualifying session. You can't afford for both your cars to go out in Q1 around this type of track.
Let's get on to McLaren then. Second time this season, McLaren finished 1 and 2 in both Friday practice sessions. The other time was Imola, when Max Verstappen went and won the race. This was the first Friday of the season in which Lando Norris led both sessions. And McLaren, the only team to go under the 1 minute 16s. And I think that to me is the key standout there. They were getting below 1:16, others weren't. And with more pace to come, we skipped work for this. Well done. Yeah. I'm not quite sure they want to advertise that they've skipped work, to be honest, now on worldwide television.
Yeah.
If the boss is watching, please go easy on them when they get back to work on Monday, because they are very sensible, clever people, and you need them on your staff.
I hope they mean by that, son, they chose to take holiday rather than rather than just actually not turning up.
They skipped work.
Not clocking in. Yeah. But yeah.
I met a couple last night on honeymoon. Their honeymoon is here at the Hungarian Grand Prix. That is beautiful matrimony. I like that a lot. Yeah, so McLaren have more pace to come, and then the only ones getting into the 116, under 116 yesterday.
Well, apparently Lando Norris even lifted off slightly coming out the final corner as he headed to the line to do the fastest lap of the session yesterday. Ooh, I don't know why he lifted off the throttle, but he did. I've seen the data, and I can't quite put, but it is true, yeah. So at least Lando's got something more as he comes up to the line that he could have given yesterday. I've seen him do this as well a few times before, actually. It seems to be a bit of a trick of his. I'm not sure why he would do it. Is it sandbagging? I mean, his teammate's going to see exactly he'll see the data as well. He'll see exactly what he's up to. But yeah, in terms of maybe other teams trying to catch them and lulling them into a false sense of security, you never know.
Oscar Piastri just coming in. I think they've just done a heat cycle through the hard compound tyre for both Lando and for Oscar, as Charles Leclerc, you just saw arriving in the Ferrari garage, looking very happy with himself. Aston Martin are out on the track, and they're also on the hard compound tyre as far as I know. And that means they're probably doing a little heat cycle through there too. No, no, they're actually doing a heat cycle on the mediums.
Well, Aston were, I think, one of the original teams that would do this, weren't they, Crofty? They'd come in and after one lap, just scrubbing the tyre just ever so gently, not causing any friction on them at all, just taking away the release agent.
Yeah.
And some teams, some tyre manufacturers believe that if you do trundle around the track and you take that release agent off, you can harden the compound by a little bit further. You kind of, you know, they do get baked. They're like cakes, these things. They bake them to the perfect temperature for the perfect amount of time when they're in construction.
Yeah, look, so the hard's going on now. They've just done one lap on the mediums, and now this will be their second set of hard tyres that they're going to do this on.
So it's effectively, some people of the opinion, I still sit on the fence with this one, having done a lot of tyre testing in my time, and you can convince yourself either way that it's a good thing or not, or whether it's just a pointless exercise.
But it's not a bad thing, or is it?
I'm not sure. I think if you're going into qualifying, it's a bad thing to do this to a tyre, because I always found that having a brand new tyre out of the box was the best thing to do to get on with your lap, particularly like a track like this, we're in the softer compound tyres of Pirelli's range. But yeah, some people think that you harden the compound ever so slightly by doing what they're doing right now.
Pirelli don't seem to think it makes too much difference, to be honest.
Well, that's interesting in itself, isn't it? The people that are actually making the tyres don't believe that what the teams are doing right. But I wouldn't put it past the teams as well to know better.
It's it's like me telling Tom Kerridge how to make a bacon butty, right? He can do it way better than I can. I am never going to disagree with Tom on chefing matters.
But you know what you like.
I know what I like.
You know what you like. More bacon, more ketchup.
No, never.
Oh, no?
Why would you put ketchup?
I don't know. I just thought more equals better for you.
What lunacy is that? Ketchup on a bacon sandwich? Not even brown sauce. Brioche bun, butter, bacon, done.
That's like doing 2 install laps on a set of tyre in your world, isn't it?
Don't do sauce, ever. So then, unless it's hot sauce, and that's another matter. Right.
I'm not going to argue with you when it comes to food.
And I'm not going to argue with Tom Kerridge when it comes to food. This is how it works. Tommy was in the paddock last week, actually, and a guest of Willams, and has been cooking up some treats for the Willams VIP guests and crew all season long. Treats on the track. Isaac Hadjar and Liam Lawson, they've kind of swapped around, I think, in recent races. Isaac Hadjar, after Australia, went on a great streak. Now he stopped scoring, and Liam Lawson has picked up the mantle a little bit. And I don't know why that is. It might just be complete coincidence, but there's definitely been a flip, yeah?
I have seen Lawson definitely improve, get back to where he was basically when he used to be at RB last year. He changed to drive for Red Bull for 2 races, and he's finding his confidence again, and with that the performance has been there. Hadjar, I still think, for me, he's rookie of the season so far. But just over the halfway point, obviously a long way to go, and Lawson's now starting to show what he's capable of.
He's got his confidence back, and he's not the driver that he was when he got released by Red Bull to go back to Racing Bulls. And on that, I'm very happy indeed, because Liam Lawson actually has, for me, has a lot of ability, and I wanted to see the real Liam Lawson on the track, not one that was still very much preoccupied with, I had a chance and I blew it. Maybe that chance will come again. Right, down to Ferrari. We're looking into the cockpit of Charles Leclerc, and standing outside is Bernie Collins. Afternoon, Bernie.
Hello, Crofty. Lovely to be down here on this sunny day in Budapest, just outside Ferrari. And testing continues. P3, obviously the last chance the teams have to try something new before they go into qualify. That's exactly what's happening here. So if you look at the rear wing, hopefully Lee will be fit to find it, the rear wing of Charles Leclerc's car, the very final element, the top element, at the very edge, it points down quite dramatically. So the last edge, the outside edge of that wing comes down to quite a point onto the main plane. Now Lewis's car is different in that section. So Lewis's car, the top element looks pretty similar for most of it, but that very extreme point, the outside point, doesn't have anywhere near the same point down in it towards the floor that Leclerc's has. So looks like Leclerc running a little bit more downforce for this first run in FP3. That'll give him a chance to look through the data, decide what's right going into qualifying. But maybe it's driver preference, maybe it's a test from Ferrari's side, but more information gathering to be done in this all-important P3 session.
And is that typical of an FP3, or is that a bit of an outlier that they're still kind of comparing wings or running different wings, Bernie?
If you had any uncertainty on a Friday night, now is your chance to do it. You don't want to be making big downforce changes on an FP3 session, but small tweaks like those end plates, it will not be dramatic. Now's the time to do it. They'll do it on the first run, they'll maybe align or a driver preference on the second run, and then you try and keep your second run in P3 as close to qualifying as you possibly can.
Thank you very much. Sauber, by the way, broke the curfew last night. First time they've done that. They were allowed 2 curfew breaks on a Friday during the season. And Franco Colapinto looked like he was on a lap, and he was, a 1:18.0.
Yeah, he was on a lap, but did you see what happened through turn 3? We've had the Porsches out before, and someone must have had a bit of an oil or spillage through that corner, and there's a lot of cement or sand that they've put down, and it kicked up all of that. So I think this is why you've got this resistance from all the teams really to want to send their cars out there to do some proper running, because they're not really going to get what they had yesterday. And on top of already the conditions, track temp at 47.5 degrees now.
Yeah, and it will go up as well, and I think they want to do those quali sims as close to the track conditions that we're going to get for qualifying to come. So just Franco Colapinto with a time lapse so far. The 2 McLarens and 2 Aston Martins have been out. Max Verstappen, as you can see, getting into his seats. you mentioned all that dust down at turn 3. I noticed as well, and they have been sweeping the track, there's a lot of marbles on the final corner that are kind of off the racing line. But when you go onto the curb, as you do in a Formula 1 car, all those marbles there, you're picking up quite a bit when you run wide. And I dare say that might have been swept a little bit better before the session.
I did see the sweeper, it was out there, and you can see through turn 3 as well. So there's that dust and the marbles as well. And the problem with this circuit is because it's so small, the car, you do a lot of laps, obviously, the cars are arriving at the same corners again and again in such quick succession. And you run softer compounds on a shorter, tighter track anyway, or a tighter track. And because you're not putting the same slip energy through them like you would do, say, at Spa or Silverstone, you don't put the same loads through your tyres as you do on a slower circuit. So it pushes you to run softer compounds, and the softer compounds feather up more and they shed their rubber more. So that's why you end up with this circuit having a lot of marbles offline.
Is he going to hold that flag like that all day? Because that's quite the commitment from the fans.
They're a dedicated bunch. I wouldn't put it past them.
Lewis Hamilton, a very popular driver here in Hungary, even before his Ferrari days, and of course the one with the most wins, 8, and the most poles, 9. And if you want to go through Lewis Hamilton's full record here, most wins, most poles, most front row starts, 11, most podiums, 12, most laps led, 487. His poles and laps led are all-time records as well at a single circuit.
Yeah, he loves this place. This track has been kind to him as well in the past, and yeah, we've seen some great performances from Lewis Hamilton around this track. So let's see how he goes with Charles, he admits this isn't his favourite circuit in terms of performances and the way that it doesn't suit his driving style. I can't quite figure why it wouldn't suit his driving style, because he loves the car with a lot of front end. He can deal with the rear moving around. It's kind of what you need on this track, a strong front end. When you turn, you need the car to turn in for you quite aggressively to get into those corners and quick direction changes like you have here, watching Hülkenberg navigate through turns 8 and 9, and then that moment where you turn into turn 11 as well. Even though it's a high-speed corner, you just need the car to immediately get tucked in for you, and that's how Charles likes to drive. So I don't understand. I'm sure he scratches his head too as to why he hasn't got the performance here. So let's see how Lewis gets on against him. It'll be fascinating to watch it unfolds. 11 previous Grand Prix here for Nico Hülkenberg, and he's only scored 2 points finishes during those 11 previous occasions, and that lap is slower than Franco Colapinto's, both on the soft compound tyre, and Pierre Gasly with a lap 2. It's not a power-sensitive circuit, but Alpine was struggling a little bit yesterday as well to find pace, which surprised me somewhat. Fourth and fifth fastest yesterday, Aston Martin. Lance Stroll goes quicker than the other 3 times we have on the board by nearly half a second with a 1:17.5. Track is a bit slower at the moment. We had a 1:16.0 as our fastest time in FP3 last year, but at the moment we're round about second and a half slower, I think, than we were yesterday. Yeah, and the Aston was around half a second, 6/10 slower, wasn't it, yesterday, compared to the best time set by Lando Norris. Lando was in the mid 1 minute 15s, 15.6 he produced yesterday. So, yeah, it's a little bit off. You'd expect that. But don't forget that Stroll there on the medium tyre. There's probably another 4 tenths in the bag if he were to go on to the soft, 4 or 5 tenths maybe. And then you get somewhere closer to where they were yesterday. But this is the confusion we're talking about right at the top, Crofty, that the track's changed, much hotter. You've reworked the car. You can still see the Flovis paint on the back end of the Red Bull there. So still the work goes on in terms of investigating how you can make the car more efficient aerodynamically. And because the track's changed so much, it's very hard, therefore, to decipher whether the balance changes you've made are the reason now he might be going slower? Or do you put it all on the circuit?
And they're not going to find that out until qualifying to come as well.
And this is where you need a driver that has a good feel, and
but also
a realistic
trust as well, that if it is the circuit, don't change anything now, it'll come to us.
Well, that's part of the hardest thing Formula One, or any form of motor racing anyway, for that matter. If you can change the car balance so drastically like you can in a Formula 1 car, there are so many things you can do to these machines to change the way they feel, the way they perform. But the circuit changing as well can counteract all of those changes you've made to try and make the thing quicker in the first place. So having trust in your drivers, you can see Yuki really fighting the rear through turn 12, like they were all day yesterday as well. So that hasn't changed.
No, exactly. It's still the same.
But yeah, you have to trust your driver that their feedback, their feel for what the circuit's giving them is right.
1:17.0, half a second clear of Lance Stroll. It's something you taught me years and years and years ago, Obi-Wan Davidson, when we first started doing this, that I just see, a blob of asphalt. It's, it's a bit of tarmac and it's a track. And you went, no, it's a living, breathing thing. It changes all the time. And as a driver and as a team, you have to remember that, because what might be wrong now, half an hour later, could be absolutely right in the way that the living, breathing thing is combining and reacting with the living, breathing thing that is going to be, driving over it at 200 miles an hour.
You're fighting moving targets. It's what happens with these things, and on top of that, the driver themselves is improving.
Yeah.
They're not like a light bulb. You just plug them in and switch them on, and they do their thing. You have to. It's an organic process where you improve yourself as well. Tenths of a second every lap. Give me another chance on new tyres. I'm going to find another 3 tenths or more.
How are you going to do it? I don't know. I just will.
I just will. Yeah, I'll look at the data. The screen's in front of the Racing Bulls car there. All the drivers studying that. With the help of their engineers as well, fine-tuning, perfecting your own performance. So it really is driver and machine working in unison. And for me, that's one of the fascinations of Formula One.
Yeah.
It really is. This engineering team and this human element as well inside the car. These computers on wheels with aeroplanes turned upside down being pulled onto the track surface. It's so complex that getting it right on any given weekend is such a sense of achievement when you do get it right.
Go off topic for a bit. That's my one big worry about next season, that we're going to be leaning more towards what the engineers say and less towards what the drivers say, because at the moment the engineers are having to tell the drivers to rethink the way they go driving and the way they have to complete a lap. And I think maybe we're putting a bit too much engineering into that rather than the feel, but hopefully it will balance itself out by the time we get round to next year. Let's live in the here and now for a moment. Max Verstappen on a lap, and it was round about here yesterday that he discovered there was a towel in his cockpit and he needed to get rid of it. I'm not sure if there's any Mario Kart turtle shells or bananas that he's going to chuck on the track today, but he seems to be going through it into turn 4. Well, okay, but 2 tenths down on his teammate Yuki Tsunoda, who has that best first sector time so far.
And Max is on the soft tyres as well. Yeah. So I didn't see anything that went completely wrong in sector 1, but you often see if you're kind to the tyres through sector 1, it pays dividends through the sector he's in now. The heart of the lap in sector 2 here. Most of the cornering's done in sector 2, and yeah, purple sector there. And hopefully for his sake, managing those tyres in the first sector will come good in the last one, where the tyres really start overheating, particularly in ambient and track temperatures that we have today, into the final corner. That's where you really need the rear grip and trust in the rear of the car as you pick up the throttle even before midway through.
He had that.
Yeah, and improves once again. Not the fastest final sector, but faster than his teammate, and Stroll, who improves as well.
But I know we were riding on board, but that felt a lot better than some of the shots I've seen of the Red Bull coming out the turn 14, the final corner yesterday, where it was sliding through that right-hander. If you want to carry on riding on board with Max Verstappen, you can do so. There's your QR code waiting for you to take you to your Sky Sports app. You need your Sky Sports login, and then you've got all 20 onboards available with a team radio too. And if you are watching via the delights of Sky Q, Sky Stream, or Sky Glass, or even now, press the interactive button on your remote control. Thank you very much. Verstappen from Stroll, from Sonoda from Gasly, and Hülkenberg now going third fastest. There is a breeze. You know, the old grandstand, we used to have some flags on the top, and it was brilliant because we could see which way the wind was blowing. They've taken all the flags away, and
You sound like Rachel from yesterday in FP1.
Oh, did she mention that?
Exact word for word, exactly the same thing. So, they've built you these brand new, lovely Grade A facilities.
Taking the flags away.
Taking the flags away, and you're complaining about it.
Which way's the wind blowing them?
I'll give you the old facilities back.
No, I know. I'm fine with the new company.
No, I'll take it, thanks.
But which way's the wind blowing?
Apparently, a tailwind towards turn 1, which will make things a bit tricky on the braking, but it's not a particularly windy day at the moment. And excited fans in the grandstand.
It looked breezy with those flags over on the far side that I can't see, but we could see on the telly.
Breezy lap by Charles Leclerc as well. Good middle sector, faster than Verstappen. Kicks up the stones on the exit of turn 12. We just follow the end of this lap on the heli shot. Looks tidy enough in the penultimate corner. Tucks in nicely for the final one. So car in front probably going to be kicking up a bit of turbulence, but a personal best, and loses a bit of time in that final sector.
Right, 10th and a half clear of Max Verstappen. I can't see any flags. You have no idea which way the wind's blowing. Ferrari have got the hairspray on, so we can't see the hair ruffling in the breeze. I'm told Bernie can come in on wind. Come in on wind, Bernie.
I'd love nothing better than come in on wind, Crofter. I've got this lovely tabard on the skirt, so it is a slight tailwind down the start-finish straight, as Ant said. It's been funneled a bit by the ground, so it's only very, very mild. But just behind Lee, if they can turn around, there's flags at the end of the other grandstand, and you can see that there into turn 1, it'll be a slight tailwind over your driver's left shoulder. So a bit more of a crosswind through turn 1 when you actually get down there. Those are the best flags I can find.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Bernie. Well done, and 50-50 choice. You got it right.
Thank you very much, Bernie, as well.
Thank you. Oscar Piastri, 26.9 for the middle sector, the best we've had so far. It's incredible, isn't it? On such a short lap, it does seem you are having to nurse your tyres through sector 1 to be able to have performance at the end, but you might still get a bit of traffic. Fernando Alonso ahead, but Oscar Piastri still goes fastest of all, and ahead of George Russell as well. But I dare say there was more to come if Alonso hadn't been there at the wrong time for him. And Lando Norris, has he made a mistake on this lap? Because he's half a second down.
I'd say very much so, yeah. What has happened on that lap for Lando? But Piastri, I agree, Crofty, certainly in the final sector could have improved lap time, because he had Alonso, who was starting one of his flying laps. So a bit of an unfortunate track position there for Piastri.
Albon about to start a flying lap too, so DRS will be open. The wind is coming from over his left shoulder as he swings down into turn 1, and we can carry on with the rest of the lap.
Yeah, so he's into the second of the 2 DRS zones on this lap. Downhill, quite steeply actually, in towards turn 2. It's bumpy, it's off camber. You don't necessarily have to meet the apex around that one to carry on with the speed, because that gives you more downforce. Keep an eye on the brake pressure actually into turn 4. Look, not even full whack on the brakes. It's a fast corner before turn 5. And then picks up the throttle as Norris gets out of the way of that one. Into the chicane, the right and the left, climb over the curbs heavily. That one, use all the curbs on the exit as well. Compromise turn 8, maybe went a little bit far over actually on the exit of that one before turn 9. Would have made that corner a little bit too tight for him. And then, yeah, a little bit of regen going on with the rain lights flashing before that second sector. Into turn 12 he goes. Watch out for the gravel on the exit. Uphill now into the penultimate corner. Rear tyres will be really starting to overheat at this point, and you've got to keep it neat and tidy. He does exactly that into the final corner. A nice line through there as well. You do need to hug the inside. DRS open, one final time to the run up to the line. And yeah, Albon has been driving really well around this track, and I think it's a circuit that suits his style as well, but the car not quite there for him at the moment.
Medium tyre run for Alex Albon, might be a bit more heavily fuelled too. I'm told that Lando Norris ran into traffic on his push lap, and also dipped a wheel here into the gravel on the exit of turn 12. A bit like Verstappen's just done there, to be honest. But this is another decent lap. And once again, another good middle sector for Max Verstappen. That car looks in a much better place than it was yesterday.
Just thinking out, well spotted, Crofties. Yeah, into the 16.2 now. Fastest middle sector. That seems to be where the car is strongest at the moment, consistently getting that fastest middle sector, and outpaces Piastri for now, but that was obviously on his second go at it. So the tyres would be good for one lap in qualifying, but right now with the track evolution rapidly coming their way, you can squeeze another lap out of it. But what's happened to Lewis here? Was he getting out of the way?
I think he was trying to make a gap before he could go for it, but stopping on the track is not ideal preparation, but it is pretty congested out there currently. Only Colapinto and Gasly and Russell are back in the garage. Piastri is on another cool lap, and that is Lewis without the grip that he needed into turn 1, and I dare say that all started at turn 12 when he had to make a gap to the cars in front.
Problem is, if you go too slowly around this track and you have to get offline, like we were talking about earlier on, you pick up so many marbles on this track, and you carry those with you all the way down the main straight. First braking zone, you got no grip, or very limited grip.
It's so difficult to get the drivers out here into a position where they're not going to be influenced and affected by other cars around them. But Lewis was very much in the wrong place when he started, or when he got to the end of his warm-up lap. That is 2.5 tenths up Charles Leclerc through the first sector. Has he, though, pushed too hard? Or is this where Ferrari need to push hard because their strength is in sector 1 and not as much in sector 2? We'll see when we get the times on the board.
This is looking fantastic from Leclerc. I know he says this track doesn't suit his driving style, but what I'm seeing is spectacular driving at the moment. The car's responding well, Crofty. Every time he's turning in, as I say, apart from that, commentators curse. But you know what? He's been consistently doing that all the way through this week so far, and that's one area of focus for Leclerc when it comes to qualifying. He's got to chill out a bit on the exit of turn 12 or mid-corner in turn 12, because the rest of the lap was absolutely spot on. Still goes fast, unbelievably. I didn't expect that, but obviously an awful lot more lap time if it weren't for that mistake in turn 12.
He had 3 tenths in hand going into that final sector and pretty much used them all up, and still puts in a 1:16.1, which is the fastest we've had so far. I don't think the Williams wasn't influencing him at all on that one.
Just too greedy on apex speed, and he's just dipped a wheel there, hasn't he? But he's consistently done that, like I say. So, and he's not the only one. Other drivers have done the same thing as Ocon through turn 8-9, heavily in traffic here.
There's a lot of chicanes there, and they're all moving.
Yeah.
Sonoda instinct.
Yeah, what was he doing, really?
Not sure.
I thought I blocked him. I didn't. It's a joke.
Oh, so it sounds like Tsunoda, or at least Ocon thinks that Tsunoda may have been giving a bit of payback for something he felt was unjust the lap before.
So we saw Lewis Hamilton cold brakes and not getting into turn 1 in the way that he would have wanted cold brakes, cold tyres, and he's having to do the rest of that lap at a slower pace and another lap at a slower pace, all because Yuki Tsunoda was in his way to start a push lap again, and his kind of problems compounded a bit for a couple of laps, but he should be able to start something in a moment, and he's got a nice clear gap to Max Verstappen in front of him as Ollie Behrman looks in his mirrors, and he'll keep doing that because Lando Norris is going to go past him in a moment.
And the reason why he is looking in his mirrors, not pushing on this lap, is because he made a mistake into turn 1, or at least it looked like the rear of the car wasn't that happy. it was a bit of a strange close-up shot we had. I didn't quite see what happened, but
Lando Norris has gone third fastest. Piastri's just started his latest flying lap.
So let's have a look at this then, and a listen. Oh, he had a bit of the dreaded rear locking.
I had the rear locking.
It's almost like there's a parrot.
It's an echo in here. Yeah. So yeah, it's just this is what spun Lewis Hamilton round in Spa, of course, into the bus stop. So obviously the driver can react to a bit of rear locking, and you ease off the brake pedal to release it a bit. But if it's more severe than that, it can spin the car around.
We have a driver in the 1 minute 15s. It's Oscar Piastri, and he's 2.5 tenths up on Charles Leclerc. So his second lap going faster still.
But the 2.5 tenths easily lost for Leclerc in turn 12. So it is much closer than it seems at this point. And a 15.8, remember the time from Norris yesterday, 15.6 in, I would say, better conditions than what we have now, means that the lap that Leclerc was on was he was pushing everything, and that's why he made the mistake in 12. He was really pushing on, but yeah, lessons to be learned now in FP3.
Not a bad lap. Similar times actually for Lewis Hamilton currently, 27.8, 26.8 for the first couple of sectors. He might find himself round about third or fourth when he crosses the line. We've got him on the left-hand side of the screen, and goes second fastest actually in a pretty decent final sector, almost the best final sector that we've had so far. So Hamilton goes second fastest. Are the Ferrari in a closer fight than maybe yesterday looked in terms of the stopwatch?
I hope they are, because I want to see a closer race. Yeah. So, it may be a bit wishful thinking. I'm sure McLaren have got a lot more up their sleeve. But yeah, the Ferrari definitely seems to be consistently McLaren's biggest threat, and that's not just here this weekend. It's over the last couple of races we've been to recently. So the recent upgrades that Ferrari have brought they seem to have worked. It's not what McLaren have, but it's at least putting them ahead of the Red Bull, I'd say.
Verstappen is on another lap. No, I think he's on a cool lap, or might be coming into the pits. That's not going to trouble the timings at all. Lawson goes 14th fastest. Albon and Behrman are improving on their current laps, as a few now return back to the pits after their first qualifying simulations.
Impressive that Bortoletto's up there as well. Both Saubers inside the top 10. Really, really impressive stuff from them once again. So their latest upgrades that they've bought from in recent races really done the trick. And it's now for the midfield teams like Alpine that we're watching on the screen now to up their game and take the fight to the green and black cars.
So 26 minutes 50 seconds on the clock. Alex Albon has asked to check the floor down at Williams, so I would imagine has run wide somewhere. We'll just carry on with this lap from Pierre Gasly. Pierre Gasly at the moment driving superbly well, and whilst his results might not always give the reward that his driving deserves, he is absolutely leading the charge for Alpine, taking things by the scruff of the neck and doing the work himself.
This is one team that I believe could maybe surprise a few people out there next year.
With a different engine?
Yeah, when they get the Mercedes power unit in the back of it next year, I think... I don't think the chassis is that bad, basically, is what I'm trying to say. And I think they know how to put a decent car together. And Gasly certainly drives the wheels off the thing. He's got some traffic here, hasn't he? Norris on a prep lap in front, and you could see what happened to him, to Gasly, in that turbulent air. Nothing he could have done.
I could describe what Pierre Gasly was doing, but it's probably best with the use of modern dance as a medium, to be honest. He was like a windy tree with his hands on the steering wheel.
And Norris... pushing on now on that lap. So yeah, he was on a prep lap on the run up towards turn 4. Such a quick left-hander. Not even a personal best for him though in sector 1.
He's had a front wing adjustment, by the way, before he went out onto this lap. Came into the pits, a little slight front wing adjustment, and then trying again. But this would be what, a third lap on these tyres?
It's asking a lot, isn't it? A third lap on a set of soft tyres. So, but he's learned. What he's trying to feel here, Crofty, is the balance difference, the percentage of what it does to the way you've perceived the car by that change of front flap, is it going to be enough if you make a few degrees of front flap change, for example? So, or if you work in percentages, just a quarter or 0.5% even, as little as that can make a difference in one of these cars.
Wowzers. Crosses the line. Lando Norris goes third fastest, 2.5 tenths behind his teammate Oscar Piastri, who after the first qualifying simulations is the only driver in the 1:15s, and Lewis Hamilton in between the two McLarens. Verstappen down in 5th. Bortoletto putting a set time for 6th best so far. That shouldn't be an eye-opener, because he's another one that's really improving soon. Is this where Alex Albon has gone wide?
Yeah, look at that over the basically serrated curbs. Excuse me, serrated curbs on the exit of this one, the red and white, and it gets more severe as you venture over the green and white section. That's exactly what he did there. Look at that, right over that lip, the edge of the curb. I didn't see any parts fall off of the floor, but they're delicate things, and he's done the right thing there to say to the team, check the underside, because he would have felt that was a rough ride.
Bortoletto, by the way, at 6th fastest, has out-qualified Nico Hülkenberg in the last 3 Grand Prix, which is why it shouldn't be a surprise, because he's really starting to find his feet a little bit. George Russell and Kimi Antonelli 7th and 8th, and Gasly and Stroll in 10th, and that's on the medium tyre. Fernando Alonso also running the medium so far and not the soft in this session.
I think Bortoletto, overall at this just over halfway point in the championship, I've been impressed with what Bortoletto's done, particularly in qualifying. And Hülkenberg's no slouch when it comes to those quali laps. So
that's true.
So yeah, he's got a good reference there, and it's great when you're a rookie and you've got an old hand like Hülkenberg, who's highly regarded in the F1 paddock. Now a podium finisher as well. So it's great for Bortoletto to show his skills against someone like Hülkenberg as the reference.
I agree. Right, let's watch Fernando Alonso. Medium tyres still for Aston Martin, playing their own game as far as today goes. And Alonso putting in a 27.8 for the first sector. So he's up against himself in terms of an improvement, but not anywhere near the overall best time. But you'd expect that running the mediums and not the soft. You can see there's one line appearing through the middle sector here. And that is just going to be one line. If you can make an overtake through these corners, you are doing very, very well, or the car in front is having problems.
Exactly, yeah. And if you're in the race come tomorrow, if you're one of those cars getting lapped, then getting out of the way on those sequence of corners is incredibly hard. You lose so much time from it as well, because you're then picking up the marbles and getting back into your rhythm afterwards is such a tough challenge for any driver. And Alonso P9 on that lap, and I'm looking down the list to see where Stroll is.
Stroll is 11th.
11th, yeah. So yeah, Stroll's having a decent time, I think, of it this weekend so far. But this is the first session, obviously, because Alonso missed FP1, first session where he's ahead of Stroll.
You know they're looking for a new James Bond. The way that helicopter was chasing Fernando Alonso, it looked like an audition for a Bond film. It really did. Christian, the helicopter pilot, giving it full beans.
Would he make a good Bond?
I think he'd make a brilliant
Alonso,
Bond. Well, I don't know. Would he make a
Bond or villain?
Yeah, maybe a Bond baddie. Oh yeah, Alonso as a Bond baddie, ladies and gentlemen. I can see it now. Alex Albon was asking the Williams team to have a look at the floor, and this is why. Turn 4, blind apex, ran wide and well too much on that green and white curved curb.
The problem is that he touched the apex curve.
Man, I don't know
and when he did that,
traffic,
that's what lurched the car to the right-hand side. You see he had to correct it straight away.
Now this is Lando Norris, and there's a lot of traffic there, to be fair to all drivers around. There's that Isaac Hadger Yeah, he was just hanging back, and then Lando Norris decides, I'm going to go in front of you. And I dare say Isaac Hadji didn't like that very much.
Man, I don't know what's wrong with the traffic, but it's too bad. Like, Norris doesn't know how to let by someone.
the rookie just dishing out a little bit of advice there for Lando Norris.
Little dig at somebody driving a superior car. You drive my car and you have to learn how to get out the way of people, and I feel like I'm more equipped in doing that than you are, because all you do is drive at the front in your fast racing car, overtaking everyone. It's, I like it. The haves and the have-nots, Crofty, of the world of Formula 1 drivers.
You sound very bitter when you say that.
Says the ex-Super Guru driver that got lapped millions of times.
Millions of times. What was your great comment in 2008?
I don't know.
Felipe Massa, you've been complaining about blue flags. Here's some blue flag action for you.
Oh, you mean when I turned to commentate?
Yeah, I remember that one.
Dear, oh dear.
So does Felipe Massa.
We all live and learn.
What a day that was. We've already just dried out. Ollie Behrman, who is going to finish 11th, we know, this weekend. Not going to let me down.
Going to be in a league of his own. Finishes 11th.
He's going to be a record holder. Like Aston Martin, Haas still on a medium tyre, like Racing Bulls as well. They've not decided to go to the softs just yet. So maybe this is still a bit of race simulation going on there.
What will it be again? If it's 5 times, if he finishes 11th, it'll be the 5th time in a row?
It'll be the 5th consecutive time he's finished 11th, and he will hold the record for the most consecutive finishes in a single place other than first, a record that he currently shares. And you're going to ask me, who does he share that record with? And he shares it with Nelson Piquet, Michele Alboreto, who, like Ollie, by the way, finished 7th 4 times in a row in 1992, 1 place outside the points. Heinz-Harald Frentzen, Lewis Hamilton, Mark Webber, and Nico Rosberg, and Valtteri Bottas and Robert Kubica. They all hold that record. It could be Ollie's all to himself. At the moment, he's 20th and last, so all our talk of 11th place is but a little bit off at the moment. Bernie Collins, where are you?
Hello, Crofty. I'm down in the pit lane, and it is roasting hot at the minute. We have got close to 30 ambient and 50 track temperature out there. And what I wanted to ask you and the viewers at home is, how much do you trust your forecast? Because that is going to be vital for all of these teams before we go into qualifying.
How much do I trust the forecast? I trust what you tell me. Oh, no, I don't. I always go and check with my app after you tell me something. It's not going to rain. There will be no rain for this weekend.
So we're just going to move a little bit away from Mercedes as they're expecting to come in. But there's a few reasons for that, Crofty. All the teams are setting up their cooling. So this afternoon is going to be incredibly hot. If it rains on Sunday, they can change their cooling. That bit's easy. If it's dry, is the car going to be too cool in race conditions? The other thing I want to put out to you is this lovely new concrete pit lane that we have here. So this concrete pit lane is actually going to be reasonably slippy if it's in dry conditions. And that's why somewhere, you see when the Mercedes moves out of the way, we've got a lot of rubber laid down in pit boxes. Rubber's good if it's a dry race because it'll add grip to the pit box. Rubber is very, very bad if it's a wet race. So alongside the downforce level, which was discussed a lot last week in Spa, there's cooling and pit box rubber choices to be made during this session and into the next session. So get your weather app up, Crofty, and we'll have some discussion about what both of us would do after the session.
Right, we shall do that. Bernie, thanks ever so much indeed. Stay cool down there. Here's Oscar Piastri flying through the first sector, 27.4, finding heat, finding rhythm, 26.2 for the middle sector. Look at that, he is nearly 8/10 up through 2/3 of this lap.
This is how it's done. He's showing everybody now how what McLaren have, what he has, and from what we've seen from this lap, it's been absolutely mighty. As he comes up to the line now, another 9/10 and a 14.9. We were impressed with the 15s yesterday.
Yeah.
Track's in worse condition. Bosch is in a 14. Wow, incredible stuff.
Have some of that. A 1 minute 14.9 pole last year was a 1:15.2 from Lando Norris. So we're 3/10 up on that. I am going to mention It's still a way off, but the best all-time lap here is a 1:13.4. That might well continue to stand Lewis Hamilton from 2020, but we're going to be edging down. If that is a benchmark, and we'll see what Lando does here, we're edging down to the low 1:14s come qualifying.
Here we go then. You see at the bottom of your screen, Lewis Hamilton is on a personal best, but let's see what Lando can do. I believe the only one that can really take the challenge to Piastri. A little bit of a wobble though on the exit of turn 1 in desperation to get on the power. So already not expecting a great sector 1, therefore. Turn 3 is full throttle. A lot of time can be gained or lost through the second corner, but yeah, there you go. A little bit down, almost a 10th down on Piastri so far on the lap. Now, on the exit of turn 5, watching how he gets on through the chicane. Hard to tell from the heli shot that we have here, but his typical style of smashing over the curbs at the apex is there once again. And then you come up to turn 11, just before the end of the second sector. What's it going to be? Another couple of hundredths down. So Piastri has got him at the moment. And yeah, back into a closer camera angle for the second to last corner. Keeps it neat and tidy on the exit. Flows the car into the final corner. It was a bit more aggressive than that yesterday. A lot of grip on the exit. Comes to the line of the fastest final sector, but it's Piastri just about ahead. 3/100ths of a second between Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris. We've been here before. I dare say we'll be here again. I'm absolutely loving this, and I'm sure all McLaren fans are too, as Lance Stroll goes 4th fastest, and now on the soft tyre, Aston Martin may be confirming that they could be up there for points finishes and a decent spot on the grid. Hulkenberg goes 5th fastest. Look, that's brilliant. Nothing to choose between Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris, but a massive gap back to Lewis Hamilton in 3rd, with more to come. But Max Verstappen is one of those more to come, and he might be round about 8, 9, 10s back as well in that Red Bull. No, it'd be more now. He's blown turn 12. Just the car floated on him, and he had to back out of it. So yeah, he's lost an awful lot more time through sector 3 alone. So already 7 tenths down by the second sector. That was a disastrous final sector. 1.2 seconds down on Piastri, but obviously a lot more time to come. Piastri's lap was better driven, and the car did what he wanted as well.
What day is it, Ant?
It is Saturday.
So what's Mr. Saturday doing?
Doing Mr. Saturday things, I should imagine.
Good to see Giampiero Lambiase back here at the track as well. Good first sector from Russell.
Which is a lot different.
Yeah, we're looking into it. Cookie's looking into it.
Oh, of course, it's +2 now.
2. Co-passed.
So +2 now from the long run.
Okay, yeah, reset, bias, offset. Reset, bias, offset.
Can we check, please, this before session start, honestly? Just wake up.
Well, he's not happy. George Russell goes 5th fastest. About the same pace as Lance Stroll. Bortoletto back up into the top 6 once again. I just want to follow Kimi Antonelli across the line because he's on a flying lap too. George Russell currently 5th fastest. Where's the other Mercedes going to be? Ahead of George Russell. 8 tenths back from McLaren, but that's competitive pace there from Kimi Antonelli. Bernie Collins, were you listening to that Yuki Tsunoda exchange there, and can you shed some light as to what they were talking about?
I listened as much as I possibly can, Crofty, but yeah, like you pointed out earlier in the session, they've done some high fuel running, and what will happen during the high fuel running, he'll have the fastest lap from that run on his dash, and then when he goes out again on his low fuel now, when he's trying to get a delta of how quick or slow he is, it's too high fuel lap, so that's no good for him. So that's why he's saying it's +2 on the delta, that's useless to me, and then that's why they're asking him, giving him a number of switch positions that he can reset it.
Thanks ever so much indeed, Bernie. This is George Russell a few moments ago.
Yeah,
a snap there.
Wondered what happened in his final sector because it wasn't even a personal best for him. So Antonelli fastening him at the moment.
Liam Lawson.
Wow.
That's why we had a double yellow in that final corner. Oh, sorry, it's Isaac Hadger, not Liam Lawson. That's why we had a double yellow. It's been waving for some time. On board now with Hadger. That could easily have been into the wall. Got on the AstroTurf, didn't he?
He did, yeah. It's that temptation. You come out of that corner and you want to get on power as early as you can. And yeah, that's a lesson learned for him, isn't it? It's like they're having to learn turn 12 and not touching the gravel. Speaking of which, we pick up Charles Leclerc.
You try to fix the rear and then collapse into understeer.
Not happy.
So go back to how it was, I would imagine, is the rest of that.
Well, I think he's talking about what he's doing inside the car. You try to fix the rear, and then suddenly, when I've got that under control, the front's just ploughing on with understeer. So he's really not impressed with the balance of the car there. Down at Red Bull, 12th and 16th.
Yeah, that's not good. Yuki Tsunoda battling with engineers, Max Verstappen battling with car. Ollie Behrman 11th. Say no more. On the weekend where he needs 11th, as we have established, he's not going to let me down.
He's teeing this up nicely.
Oh dear. Ahead of him, Bortoletto and Hülkenberg, both in the top 10 for Sauber. Kimi Antonelli ahead of George Russell. Look, this counts for nothing until we go into qualifying. It's just, it's a good guide. Also to see Alonso and Stroll right up there still.
Yeah, the Aston Martin consistently performing well this weekend.
And Charles Leclerc 4/10ths back on Oscar Piastri. Ferrari, they are the best of the rest, but they've got one hell of a lot of time to make up.
Yeah, if Russell had sorted that final sector as well, it would have just been in front, maybe just been in front of Hamilton on that lap. He definitely lost around 2/10ths at least in what he did there. But then if you apply the same thing to other drivers, if they just perfected this or that, they would have found another 2/10ths. So, but Russell's one did look like almost the same thing happened to him that happened to Hadjar.
Yeah.
Next in turn 13. So, yeah, that was something to remember. And it's typical, the end of the lap. We always talk about it when the rear tyres get hot there. You've got to change your style a bit.
Yeah, you've got to keep a bit in reserve, but If Oscar Piastri is going out first in qualifying, Lando Norris is going to see what his teammate's doing and think, well, I've actually got to push on a little bit if Oscar's getting the times in, or vice versa, and you might overdo it a little bit on that lap before you get to the final sector.
It's finding that sweet spot, whether you're right on the limit of adhesion. And I felt like when we rode with Lando in some areas of the track, he was just on the brink of underdriving it, particularly sector 1.
Well, that's kind of borne out there a little bit, isn't it?
And then maybe even through sector 2 as well, and he got a decent sector 3 in. Right. But Piastri is that kind of lap you dream of driving in qualifying when it really matters. Whether you can achieve that exact perfection again is easier said than done sometimes.
Right, here we go again with Lando Norris then. Oscar Piastri's on a cool lap currently. Norris making his way through the heat haze to the end of the first sector, but he's a 10th and a half down through that sector with a 27.6. You said in qualifying there's only going to be one lap of these tyres, and maybe we're getting to the pace now where there's only one lap of these tyres currently, but this is important for the teams to actually get a run in on the used soft tyres in case they have to go and do it in Q1 or in Q2. They want to see what their benchmark time is as to whether they can risk going out on a set of used tyres or they're going to have to put a new set on, depending on what the situation is in qualifying.
It's a good point, Crofty, and you want to give yourself the chance of running 2 new sets of soft tyres in Q3 when particularly you're trying to fight your teammate for that coveted pole position. And Norris continues to lose time in every single sector. This is more akin of what we usually see here in Budapest. And up until this point, we've had rapid track evolution, and that kind of masks the degradation of the tyres. So you can often go faster on your second lap, maybe even your third lap sometimes, as the track continues to improve and the car continues to improve in its setup, and it's just a fine-tuning process. And then once all those other variables have leveled out or evened out, then it comes down to the biggest one really is the tyres. So, and that's what we're seeing now. Yeah, Bortoletto, another one. He's experiencing that drop-off in grip, and you really feel that from inside the car. So, but like you say, the homework's got to be done because you've got to carry that through into qualifying next.
Liam Lawson and Pierre Gasly have personal best first sectors currently on a flying lap. Bortoletto puts in the personal best for the last sector, 9th fastest.
Well, that means there's an awful lot of time to find then when the tyre is in much better shape. You've done your best, personal best last sector when the tyres were at their worst over the lap. So I wonder what happened on Bortoletto's previous go at that.
It was flowing through a bit of traffic. By the way, Lawson goes 13th fastest as he gets his lap in on the soft tyre, and Gasly 16th fastest. I mentioned they were both on a push lap. Esteban Ocon, P16 for him, and Isaac Hadger, I think, will be going for a lap. He is on a lap currently.
Yeah, so he's on the medium tyre. So he had that spin.
He's obviously flat spotted the softs. The one I'm surprised not to see on the track at the moment is Yuki Tsunoda, and I know obviously he's got that issue, you know, with we were hearing about talking with his engineer, and Bernie was explaining, and maybe it just needs a little bit more time in the garage, but he's not going to get necessarily a clear soft tyre run in terms of a fastest time.
This is more usual.
Because he's in the garage.
Yeah. This is more usually what we see with Antonelli here. So you can sometimes pop in a personal best first sector, and then things go south from there in the middle and last. And he's actually backed out of this one, isn't he? Coming down the final corner. Winner
here last year, Kimi Antonelli in the F2 feature race from 7th on the grid. It was his only feature race win last year. Certainly good for him to come back to a track where he's got winning memories from, you know, at a time where he is looking for a little boost. Told that Yuki Tsunoda and Max Verstappen are making their way onto the track. I can see Yuki Tsunoda. He's just come out of his garage as we look at Toto Wolff. Got a few things to sort out in the summer. Contracts for his 2 drivers being one of them. Where'd you go on holiday to get away from it all, or do you go and have a little chat with your drivers first before you do it? Are Mercedes going to announce anything before the summer break, or are those contract negotiations with George Russell just going to take a little bit longer?
He's already done Sardinia. Where'd you go after that?
I don't know. Holland. That was so much fun watching people stress about holidays in Sardinia, and some of the worst Photoshop pictures I have ever seen. Toto Wolff arrives in Sardinia with his paddock pass around his neck, Jerome D'Ambrosio by his side. Do you know who got fooled by him though? Do you know who sent me a message going, have you seen these pictures? Karun Chandler.
Oh dear.
Right, Karun, let me just point a couple of things out for you on this one. Bernie says the wind has picked up down in the pit lane. It does pick up in the afternoon a bit here, but it's nothing major as yet.
Right, let's see, with 2 minutes on the board remaining, whether Red Bull can pick themselves up from P12, P19. Helmut Marko looks on. Really can't believe what he's looking at, the timing sheets, but still enough time to go, and I'm sure that there was a better lap in there for Verstappen. The mistake came through turn 12, and I know the car didn't look great, but there's definitely more time there. There's Leclerc now on another lap. Through turn 2 he goes, currently sitting 3rd fastest, 4 tenths away from the 2 McLarens. I really get the feeling that that's the best we're going to see Ferrari achieve in terms of positioning today. Through turn 5, car still looks pretty stuck to the ground, but obviously losing time as the tyres age. It's such a fantastic track to drive though. These kind of corners here, the left and right of turn 8 and turn 9, on the power through the flat out turn 10, barely touch the brakes in 11, kick up all the plank dust from the exit. Something you've got to be more careful of in the race day, of course. You've got to watch out for the plank wear as you run these cars as close to the ground as possible these days. And through turn 13, whoa, and he kicks up the dust and the rear snaps on him like we've seen from Russell and Hadjar.
Sliding a bit around the final turn 2.
Really pushing on.
He crosses the line, doesn't improve. Franco Colapinto, just see him at the top of your screen, goes P13 with his latest lap. Max Verstappen, 27.8 and a 26.9, like everyone else, really just not improving. The tyre life isn't there, and they're all trying to get out onto the track before the red light comes on, so the cars can go and do a lap, and then a practice starts on the grid.
They're going to have a lot of radio communication with their engineers here, the drivers, because they've got Verstappen coming down.
He's just finishing a lap.
Did he finish the lap, or did he just nip through before the checker plate? Oh, okay.
He was just finishing a lap. Max Verstappen stays 12th fastest. His teammate Yuki Tsunoda is on the on the soft tyre, but he didn't improve either.
Look at this. This is a replay of Charles' moment. Yeah, look less dramatic, obviously, than what Hadjar had, but you want to stay away from that AstroTurf. The trouble is, at higher speeds, the car has the downforce to cope with a bit of AstroTurf usage, like on the exit of turn 9, for example. But
at medium speed.
Yeah, or I'd even say slower speed for turn 13. The car can really snap on you violently. So the problem is with 13, you're building up speed as you go through it. And making that decision from inside the car is quite tough.
Kimi Antonelli, power over the line, and get a bit of a tow as well behind Nico Hülkenberg. Finishes ahead of George Russell in this session then, and well, he's not ahead of Russell in many parts of the track, but where he is ahead on the comparison there, it's been quite significant.
Yeah, there's a little bit at the beginning of Sector 2 for him, where he was a bit quicker, and then obviously through turn 12 and 13 where Russell made the mistake. So yeah, lots of areas where drivers can focus on to improve.
What a session.
Yeah.
I don't think he meant that in a positive way.
No. That was, I think the pain continues on from yesterday as Laurent Mekies looks on in a tougher weekend than last.
Yeah, I think that's a fair way of summing it up. We're going to have some practice starts on the grid. Let's have a little chat here. Piastri against Norris. 4 pole, and it's McLaren 1-2 for 3 sessions running. And I'm really tempted to say whatever Lando Norris is going to throw up Oscar Piastri's going to take pole, because he just seems to be able to soak up the pressure of the moment, the situation, and then deliver when it all comes down to it. But Lando Norris is quick over a lap, and there is so little to choose between the two.
It's faster than the blink of an eye, Crofty, the difference between their times there.
Well, somebody pass me a fence and I'll sit on it for a while, because I honestly do not have a Scooby who's going to get pole position today.
That lap that Oscar put together, though, just the way he attacked the racetrack, the confidence I could see that he had, that's going to be hard to topple.
Is that you thinking, right, he had the confidence, he went out and delivered that, and Lando was pushing and looking more vulnerable during that lap, or during his lap, and that might be the best he has to offer in terms of, can he get any closer?
And I just think that Oscar is a bit of a builder when it comes to just focusing on the details and improving himself over the weekend, and I felt like at the beginning, FP1, FP2, it's a Lando kind of track. He hit the ground running, he's got a super aggressive driving style, lends itself well to this circuit, but I get the feeling that Oscar's studied the data a lot last night, maybe tweaked the car to his liking as well. Let's see.
Last year's race winner against last year's pole sitter in the battle for pole in 2025. Oscar Piastri, fastest in final practice. McLaren have been first and second fastest in every session so far. This is the first session in which Oscar's been on top. Charles Leclerc, nearest of the rest, 4/10ths back for Ferrari, ahead of Lewis Hamilton. Kimi Antonelli ahead of George Russell. Fernando Alonso bouncing back after a bad back, ahead of Lance Stroll. The 2 Aston Martins in the top 10 again. Bortoletto ahead of Hülkenberg. He's out-qualified him for the last 3 races. Last 4 races, Ollie Behrman's finished 11th, and that's where he was at the end of this. It was disappointing for Verstappen, and particularly for Tsunoda at Red Bull, only 12th and 19th. Isaac Hadjar had a big spin that destroyed his soft tyres as well. Qualifying to come. Who's going to get pole?